Chapter 2841. Lin Feng was part of the first batch of explorers to enter the second level of the secret realm. Although Heavenly King Lin Feng was more experienced, Lin Feng had entered more floating continents than him. Although he had never heard of the secret Lun stone and did not know its use, he had seen the strange patterns on it before. On that strange floating platform. The top of the floating platform was covered in all sorts of strange carvings, but there was nothing there, as if something was missing. At the time, Lin Feng had searched all over the floating continent, but he couldn't find anything that was related to this floating platform. The carvings on the platform seemed to contain some kind of mystery. The ancient carvings on the secret Lun stone were very similar to the carvings on the floating platform. They seemed to be connected to the carvings on the platform and were very familiar. If I'm not wrong, the secret Lun stone should be on that floating platform. Lin Feng told Heavenly King Zhao Kuang his guess. Heavenly King Zhao Kuang seemed to understand. The possibility is very high. Heavenly King Zhao Kuang looked at the secret Lun stone and smiled bitterly. So what if it was possible? Before entering the Black Castle, they had already agreed that all the treasures inside would belong to Lin Feng, including the secret Lun stone. Although the secret Lun stone was very valuable, Heavenly King Zhao Kuang was a powerful person with a high status. In your opinion, what is the use of the secret Lun stone? Lin Feng asked. The key. Heavenly King Zhao Kuang did not hesitate. The key to enter the core of the secret realm. Only the cultivator who has the secret Lun stone is qualified to enter the true core of the secret realm. Lin Feng nodded. He had worked with Heavenly King Zhao Kuang for a while and had learned a lot about the secret realm from him. The true core of the secret realm must be where the inheritance treasure of the master of 100 million wheels was hidden. It seemed that obtaining the secret Lun stone was a symbol of power. Heavenly King, are you interested? Lin Feng asked. Heavenly King Zhao Kuang's eyes lit up. Brother Lin, are you willing to part with it? As long as you can afford it. Lin Feng did not care too much about the legacy treasure of 100 million wheels master. First of all, he might not be able to use it even if he obtained it. Second of all, he did not need the legacy. Third of all, it was too dangerous. He was already besieged on all sides, and every step he took was difficult. Presently, the most important thing was to fuse the treasures he obtained for his own use, improve his combat strength, and strengthen his ability to protect himself, and not be greedy and seize the treasures. There was an endless supply of treasures. When it was time to give up, Lin Feng wouldn't be too conflicted. Of course, it still depended on how much Heavenly King Zhao Kuang was willing to pay. Although they had a good relationship, they were not close friends. Lin Feng would not pretend to be generous. Just as Heavenly King Zhao Kuang had said, it was already rare for him to be willing to part with his treasures. Heavenly King Zhao Kuang hesitated. It was not that he was unwilling to part with it, but the secret Lun stone was not like homing source items. It had a fixed value, and it would only appear when the secret realm opened. If you want to say that it's valuable, it has no use in itself. If you say it's not valuable, it's the key to the inheritance treasure of the master of 100 million wheels. It was difficult to come to a conclusion. How about using this ripe Hongmeng peach? Heavenly King Zhao Kuang asked tentatively. A ripe Hongmeng peach was worth 8,000 Hongmeng origin crystals. However, the one in Heavenly King Zhao Kuang's hand originally belonged to Lin Feng. Heavenly King Zhao Kuang shook his head. He knew that it was not enough. Treasures were easy to obtain, but opportunities were hard to come by. That was the core of the master of 100 million wheels secret realm. It might contain treasures at the level of a Khanate Almighty, the ruler of the universe. Using a ripe Hongmeng peach to exchange for it? That was looking down on the master of 100 million wheels too much. Brother Lin, please wait for a moment. Let me discuss with my brother. Heavenly King Zhao Kuang turned on his communicator and contacted his companions. He was not the only one who had entered the second level of the secret realm. However, the organization they belonged to was more mysterious, and so were their members. Lin Feng waited patiently while refining the netherworld flower. He was not in a hurry. If Heavenly King Zhao Kuo could offer a suitable price that could attract him, then he would exchange it. Otherwise, he would keep it and see if he could use it for himself or sell it to other cultivators. In this regard, Lin Feng was already in an invincible position. Soon, we've discussed it, Brother Lin. The price is 20,000 Hongmeng origin crystals. How about it? Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's eyes were filled with anticipation. 30,000. Lin Feng extended 3 fingers. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo smiled bitterly. We don't have that many Hongmeng origin crystals, Brother Lin. You can use treasures instead, Lin Feng said. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo sighed softly. Lin Feng had completely grasped his desire for the secret realm stone. In addition, Heavenly King Zhao Kuo himself did not hide this desire. He was at a complete disadvantage in this game. In addition, he had just obtained a ripe Hongmeng peach from Lin Feng, which was worth 8,000 Hongmeng origin crystals. Right now, he was like a fish on the chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. After some haggling, they finally reached a deal. With 18,000 Hongmeng origin crystals, a ripe Hongmeng peach, and a Hongmeng origin item, the total value was 27,000 Hongmeng origin crystals. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo took the secret realm stone from Lin Feng. I don't have that many Hongmeng origin crystals on me right now. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo returned the Hongmeng peach to Lin Feng and gave Lin Feng 6,000 Hongmeng origin crystals. Don't worry, we can trust each other. Lin Feng smiled. He did not care about trifles. With Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's reputation, he would not go back on his word. Ka. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo smiled. Brother Lin, why don't you wait here for a moment? I'll go to my brother's place to get the remaining Hongmeng origin crystals. It'll be quick. No need to go through so much trouble. Just give it to me the next time you see it, Lin Feng said. Okay, let's keep in touch. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo was not fussy. They had already exchanged contact information. They trusted each other and did not care about trifles. Lin Feng nodded. If he really wanted to take advantage of him, Heavenly King Zhao Kuo would have left with the secret realm stone long ago. At that time, he did not know the value of the secret realm stone. After searching the Black Castle again, Lin Feng and Heavenly King Zhao Kuo left. There was nothing special in the Xinluo region. The treasures were all in the Black Castle. Congratulations, Brother Lin. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's eyes were full of envy. If he had known, he would not have taken the Hongmeng peach. He would have lost so many Hongmeng origin crystals. Now, not only did he give the Hongmeng peach to Lin Feng, he had to hand over all 6,000 Hongmeng origin crystals and owe Lin Feng 12,000 Hongmeng origin crystals. One word, miserable. Congratulations to Heavenly King too, Lin Feng said. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo smiled. Although he had paid so much, to be honest, it was worth it. Without Lin Feng, he would not have been able to get the secret realm stone. The other cultivators would not have given it to him. Whether it was the Hongmeng origin crystals or treasures, it was not difficult for him to earn them back with his strength and status. Only the secret realm stone was an opportunity that could not be repeated. If he grasped it, he would soar into the sky. Chapter 2842. Lin Feng bid farewell to Heavenly Monarch Zhao Kuang. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of taking the secret Lin stone, but he had felt that it was dispensable. Furthermore, Lin Feng felt apologetic toward Heavenly Monarch Zhao Kuang. After all, Heavenly Monarch Zhao Kuang had really suffered a huge loss this time. Thus, he would just give the secret Lin stone to him as a favor. The inheritance treasure of the 100 million wheel master. Lin Feng wasn't interested in competing with other powerhouses. There would definitely be a bloodbath when the time came. Heavenly Monarch Zhao Kuang alone wasn't a match for him, but there were also powerful entities like Zhu Ying and Great King Greenhammer. Given his current strength, there was no need to get involved. Underworld Flower. Lin Feng slowed down and focused more on his cultivation. Every time he refined a netherworld flower, his strength would increase tremendously. His perfect source soul was evolving at a speed visible to the naked eye. It had initially been less than 10 times, but now it had increased to 30 times, 50 times, 70 times, until it reached 100 times. It's saturated. Just like the perfect source sea, the perfect source soul also had limits. These limits were shackled by one's life, form, and internal universe. The stronger the internal universe, the higher and more special the life form. The stronger the perfect source soul and perfect source sea that could be accommodated. Lin Feng's internal universe was perfect and massive. Unfortunately, it was still only Huangzun. However, a perfect source soul with 100 times had already surpassed 99% of peak first thought Yuan venerates. My source soul impact is now stronger than my source sea impact. Lin Feng understood that although it was strong, the problem was that he hadn't created any secret techniques for source soul impact. Thus, he couldn't unleash the full power of his source soul impact, even with the fusion of perfect source heart force. However, even though he couldn't unleash source soul impact, he could still control objects to attack. Lin Feng had also reached the limit of 100 times with perfect source soul control. 100 times was naturally not the limit of a peak Yuan venerate. Different life forms and internal universes had different upper limits. Lin Feng could only reach 100 times because he was only facing Huangzun. Cultivating the strongest fifth level of the Phantom Arachnid Hand, the 1,000 Spiders, 1,000 Shadows, required perfect source soul control to reach 1,000 times. Ordinary peak Yuan venerates couldn't unleash the strongest ability of the supreme chaotic treasure. The fourth level, Phantom Arachnid Killing, also required perfect source soul control to reach 300 times. However, if one's source soul control reached 100 times and some other treasures, they could still barely unleash it. However, the fifth level was impossible. 1,000 times was a huge. My perfect origin heart force has fused with my perfect origin soul. I can easily control the 1,000 spider shadows. What Lin Feng lacked the most now was not fatal damage, but abilities that could be used in a normal battle. Controlling objects to attack was of first thought Quang's. Previously, Lin Feng couldn't use it because his perfect source spirit wasn't strong enough, and his control over his perfect source spirit wasn't good enough. Now, these two problems were easily solved. Now, about of that head hand Lin's spirit hisses the est. Currently, Lin Feng no longer had any weaknesses in the path of Genesis soul cultivation. At close range, he could attack with his source C and use illusion techniques. From afar, he could control objects to attack. He was undoubtedly much stronger than before. Black Crystal. Now that his perfect origin soul had reached its limit, Lin Feng began to refine the Black Crystal Mountain's black crystals. The Black Crystal Mountain's mental cultivation technique was very interesting and unique. When the black crystals merged with his perfect origin sea and expanded, it also caused the perfect origin sea to contain a lot of special energy. This special energy could strengthen the perfect source sea. The key to igniting this energy was the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique. Lin Feng strolled around. More than one or two people had entered the second level of the secret realm. Those who had just entered had all entered and obtained countless treasures. There was no need to force it now. After all, this wasn't the time for exploration. There were at least a few dozen powerhouses who had entered the second level of the secret realm. Should he try his luck again? Would he be that lucky? Lin Feng was already satisfied with obtaining the treasures of the giant's sacred land and the Black Castle. Now, he was more concerned about how to integrate these two treasures for his own use as quickly as possible. This was especially true for the source soul treasures of the Black Castle. The secret wheel stone, the inheritance treasure of the 100 million wheel master. Lin Feng didn't care. Even if the calling was very strong, so what? Hadn't it been the same when he had walked the path of the primal chaos origin venerate? A person could only walk one path. Let them fight. The more intense the fight, the better. Lin Feng decided to play it safe. After all, he had a lot of enemies now. On the floating continent. Look, what's that? The two heart cultivators stopped in shock. Their gazes were focused on a white brilliance. Streaks of ancient runes curled about, transforming into pure heart force energy that wrapped around a floating platform. Outside the floating platform, a unique imprint flickered with a strange light, as if an eye had opened. There seems to be a cultivator inside, but I can't see who it is. The white brilliance completely covered the inside of the floating platform. Even with the eyesight of a Yuan Venerate powerhouse, they could only barely see the figure. They couldn't see the appearance and characteristics of the figure, let alone sense the aura through the perfect source heart force. The floating platform was like an extra-dimensional space that was independent of this area. Is it a treasure? It doesn't look like it. Let's go. It will be troublesome if we trigger the restrictions. Okay. The floating platforms were lit up one by one. It was almost the same. Outside the floating platform, there was a mark that looked like an ancient eye. It flashed with a strange color. Ancient runes spread out outside the floating platform, forming a strange pattern. Covered by the perfect heart force, the floating platform was tightly covered. No one could see what was inside the floating platform. No one knew what was going on. However, the uniqueness of the floating platform had gradually spread throughout the second level of the secret realm. Found it. Although he didn't know if it was the floating platform that Lin Feng had seen, Heavenly King Zhao Kui still found one of the empty floating platforms. He wasn't in a hurry, as it was useless for other cultivators to find it. Only when the secret Luin stone was placed on the ancient runes of the floating platform could it be activated. One by one, they would definitely be able to find the floating platform. I wonder how many secret Luin stones there are. Heavenly King Zhao Kui gently placed the secret Luin stone on the floating platform's ancient carvings. In an instant, the two layers of ancient carvings shone at the same time. Like two poles of a magnet, the ancient carvings connected perfectly, forming a strange pattern. Whoosh! Perfect source heart force descended. The floating platform shook, and an abundant energy enveloped Heavenly King Zhao Kui. In the middle of the floating platform, an extremely familiar statue appeared. It was the statue that Heavenly King Zhao Kui had seen in the Black Castle. The statue of the 100 million wheels master. Indeed, Heavenly King Zhao Kui was overjoyed. The secret Luin stone is indeed related to the inheritance treasure of the 100 million wheels master. It's all thanks to Lin Feng this time. Heavenly King Zhao Kui was grateful. He hadn't suffered a loss this time. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version update website. Chapter 2843. The secret Luin stones were not obtained by the fated ones. To be more precise, they were obtained by the strong ones. Every secret Luin stone was not easy to obtain. There were a total of 8 secret Luin stones, and 6 of them were currently in the floating platforms. Zhu Ying, Endoweran, Eternal Eternity God, Green Hammer King, Heavenly King Zhao Kui, and Wang Yu. None of them were ordinary people. There were also many experts with similar or slightly weaker strength who were exploring the second level of the secret realm. When the secret Luin stones were placed on the floating platforms, the ancient runes would activate and form a unique phenomenon. It would be hard not to attract attention. 1 would spread to 10, 10 would spread to 100, and the secret of the secret Luin stones would naturally spread. Secret Luin stones? I don't have any. Lin Feng also received Qi Yuzi's message and answered directly. He indeed did not have any. It was fine to sell it to Heavenly King Zhao Kui. There was no need to say too much. Lin Feng's relationship with Qi Yuzi was better than with Heavenly King Zhao Kui, but they were just ordinary friends. They had a short cooperation in the first level of the secret realm. When entering the Black Castle, Lin Feng also considered Qi Yuzi, but in terms of strength, he would definitely choose Heavenly King Zhao Kui. Heavenly King Zhao Kui's secret Luin stone has been activated. Lin Feng and Heavenly King Zhao Kui had always been in contact. Not long after obtaining the secret Luin stone, Heavenly King Zhao Kui found a floating platform through his connections. After all, the floating platform itself had no use and value. There are a few floating platforms that are also activated, but they're not full. How many secret Lun stones are there? Lin Feng was also curious. Moving slowly in the second level of the secret realm, in terms of a number of floating continents explored, if not first, he would at least be second or third. The number of floating continents in the second level of the secret realm is less than 100. In terms of probability, on average, one secret Lun stone can be found in 15 floating continents, so in the dangerous places that I skipped before, there might be secret Lun stones. Lin Feng had explored a lot of floating continents. When exploring new lands, he would naturally skip some extremely dangerous places. At that time, he was not strong enough, so skipping them was a wise choice. Now that he thought about it, those dangerous places might have secret Lun stones. It was impossible for him to be so unlucky as to only find a secret wheel stone in the second level of the secret realm after searching half of the floating continent. Although safety is the most important thing, there are a few dangerous places that we can actually enter now. After leaving the Black Castle, Lin Feng searched for a long time but did not find anything. In addition, his strength had improved, and at this moment, some thoughts of adventure appeared in his mind. Even if there was no secret Lun stone there would be other treasures. Instead of going around in circles and wasting time, it would be better to go directly to those dangerous places to explore. The treasures that he did not dare to go deep into that place that day might still be there, and there might also be the existence of the secret Lun stone, because those dangerous places were dangerous enough. Whoosh! Lin Feng acted as soon as he thought of it. Lin Feng remembered the location of every dangerous area very clearly. He knew that he would come back sooner or later to challenge them again. Now that his strength had improved greatly, it was the best opportunity. If he delayed any longer, it was very likely that he would be taken away by the other cultivators. The seven-colored floating continent. This was a very beautiful floating continent with the colors of the rainbow. From bottom to top, it presented the colors of the rainbow. At the edge of this floating continent, there was a mirror-like seven-colored cloud ladder. Every layer had a unique color that contained dense origin core energy. It looked beautiful and breathtaking, but in fact, it was full of murderous intent. Through the rainbow, one could clearly see what looked like an illusion. Each level was more illusory than the previous, and each level was more terrifying than the previous. However, under the colors and illusion, there were corpses. They were not skeletons, but corpses. These were the corpses that had just entered but died. There were very few corpses in the first 3 levels. There were 5 corpses in the middle level, 3 in the 4th level, 2 in the 5th level, 1 in the 6th level, and none in the 7th level. The total number of cultivators that had entered the second level of the secret realm was less than 100. But here, there were a total of 12, and all of them had died. Big brother, let's go. Let me think about it. There might be the legendary secret Lun stone inside. But look at those in front. Their failure doesn't mean that we will fail too. Let's go, big brother. Don't be rash. Think about it again. The 2 demon race brothers were cast from the same mold. One had a straight angle, while the other had a spiral angle. Similarly, one had a fiery temper, while the other had a calm temperament. They were considered 2 rather powerful powerhouses on the second level of the secret realm. Their minds were connected, and their cooperation was seamless. If they really fought, even Heavenly Monarch Zhao Kuo would have to expend a considerable amount of effort to win. However, it was useless no matter how good their cooperation was because this was an illusion. Furthermore, it was an illusion created by a mind cultivator. Compared to the illusion created by a Yuan Venerate, the illusion created by a mind cultivator was much more varied. When one's consciousness was integrated into the illusion, it was both real and real. In addition to the test of one's willpower, there were also considerable requirements for the strength of the cultivator that entered the illusion. Otherwise, Lin Feng would have already entered on his first try. Lin Feng's willpower was comparable to that of an extraordinary almighty, so he was almost at the top of the second level of the secret realm. Naturally, he wasn't afraid of the illusion. However, the requirement of strength for a mind cultivator's illusion made Lin Feng somewhat stumped. At the time, He had nothing else to show except for his source C. Therefore, Lin Feng had chosen to give up. But this time, more cultivators are here. He's a human. Huang Zun human? This human seems somewhat familiar. Just as the right-horned Kuan King and the curved-horned Kuan King were puzzled, they saw Lin Feng's figure flash and leap past the two of them. Without thinking, he entered the seven-colored ladder illusion. Direct, decisive, and persistent. The curved-horned Kuan King was a little stunned. "We were robbed, big brother," the right-horned Kuan King said angrily. At this moment, as Lin Feng entered the rainbow cloud ladder, the illusion suddenly changed. It was as if the paused image started to play frame by frame. He could vaguely see Lin Feng's figure falling into the seven colors, and the door to the illusion closed. It was temporarily closed. It doesn't matter. Look up there. With so many dead, this Huang Zun human will definitely follow in their footsteps, said the curved-horned Kuan King. The problem is that we're going to waste a lot of time again, big brother. The right-horned Kuan King said unhappily. Time on the second level of the secret realm was extremely precious. What they were wasting here was time searching for treasures. Moreover, if they stayed here, there would be a lot of changes. What if other powerful experts appeared? They hadn't even spoken 2 sentences. What? He entered the second level so quickly. No, the third level? Looking at the 7-colored cloud ladder that suddenly changed color, the right-horned Kuan King and the curved-horned Kuan King widened their eyes. They were shocked to see that the human emperor was like a hot knife through butter. As soon as he entered, he had already climbed to the 3rd level of the cloud ladder. Too fast. Chapter 2844. Overlapping silken shadows. Lin Feng protected himself and the city of Will. The illusions were like smoke and the attacks were like fleeting clouds. Given Lin Feng's current strength, it was easy for him to move around. The control of the phantom spider hand was like a shadow. Lin Feng had already reached the peak of the Yuan Venerate, whether it was his perfect source soul or his control of it. He was no longer the Lin Feng of the past, who had only been able to break through the source sea. Boom! Once again, Lin Feng easily blasted through the layers of phantoms and entered the 4th level very quickly. Then, he entered the 5th level. There was no difficulty at all. Lin Feng was very strong now. His strong performance left the right-horned Kuan monarch and the curved-horned Kuan monarch dumbfounded. Too impressive. Big brother. Is he human? Maybe. It was rather shocking. A total of 12 powerhouses had died on the rainbow cloud ladder. The higher one went, the fewer the corpses. This didn't mean that the difficulty was lower. On the contrary, the higher one went, the more difficult it was. These cultivators simply couldn't enter the 7th level. There was only one corpse on the 6th level. The 7th level. The curved-horned Kuan monarch felt suffocated. What a strong human. Impressive. The right-horned Kuan monarch's eyes glowed. The strong respected the strong. The right-horned Kuan monarch admired the fact that Luo Yunyang could enter the 7th level by himself. At the very least, he wasn't confident that he could do it. As for his brother, who was always in a dilemma, there was no need to mention him. The treasure is gone. The curved-horned Kuan monarch sighed. Do you want to snatch it? The right-horned Kuan monarch asked his brother. This? The curved-horned Kuan monarch muttered to himself. Let me think about it. What do you think, big brother? The right-horned Kuan monarch urged. If you want to do it, then do it. If you don't want to do it, then don't. Hurry up and decide. Think again. The curved-horned Kuan monarch frowned. Soon, there's no need to think, big brother. The right-horned Kuan monarch rolled his eyes. Huh, he has already left. What's there to think about? The right-horned Kuan monarch looked at the curved-horned Kuan monarch with disdain. We don't know the strength. You didn't even try to snatch the secret Luan stone? The right-horned Kuan king squinted. Lin Feng had indeed taken away the secret Luan stone. At the very top of the rainbow cloud ladder, there was a secret Will stone clearly placed there. This was the only treasure on the rainbow cloud ladder, and Lin Feng was naturally very familiar with it. Because the secret Luan stone was connected to the secret realm, it could not be put into the storage ring. Therefore, when he took it out, the right-horned Kuan King saw it. However, he didn't try to snatch it. Firstly, the curve-horned Kuan King had yet to make a decision. Secondly, the right-horned Kuan King still admired Lin Feng. However, if he really wanted to snatch it, he wouldn't be able to. Lin Feng wasn't someone an ordinary peak Yuan venerate on the second level of the mystic realm could bully. In a one-on-one battle, killing the curve-horned Kuan King was a piece of cake. Sell one and get another. Lin Feng controlled the secret Luan stone and flew quickly. This was too easy for a Yuan venerate that was adept at controlling objects. However, Lin Feng had a headache about how to deal with it. To be honest, Lin Feng never thought that he would be able to obtain another secret Luan stone. However, as if it was destined, he had obtained a second one. Therefore, I have an inexplicable fate with the owner of 100 million wheels. Lin Feng chuckled. Since it was fate, he shouldn't waste it. Furthermore, this secret Luan stone wasn't easy to deal with. The first piece had already been sold to Heavenly Monarch Zhao Kuo. If he sold a second piece, who would buy it? He wouldn't be able to get a high price for it. Then he would use it himself. He had rejected the first opportunity, and now the second opportunity had come. Lin Feng didn't want to reject it anymore. Furthermore, after refining and fusing with the treasures he had obtained in the Black Castle, his strength had improved by leaps and bounds. He was destined to obtain the secret Luan stone. He was destined to be a part of opening the mystic realm. Find a floating platform. Lin Feng already had a clear plan. Enter the core area of the mystic realm. It's here. The seventh one. I wonder who it is. The 6 experts waited with bated breath. They sensed the changes in the ancient runes on their bodies. A thick stroke seemed to have been added to the complicated pattern. Powerful, perfect source heart force covered the floating platform. White light flickered in front of them, and a figure appeared. Isn't this Huang Zun human? Lin Feng. He really came. Many people knew Lin Feng. Back in the 100 million wheels tomb, Lin Feng's battle with Sheng Jin had become famous. After all, Lin Feng was just a Huang Zun human. However, what made the experts remember Lin Feng was when he was chased by the 13 Corps and entered the 100 million wheels tomb. That battle had left a deep impression on all the cultivators of the human sovereign stage. Especially on the first level of the mystic realm, they were shocked to see that Lin Feng hadn't died. It was too shocking. However, they only knew that Huang Zun human. Only 2 experts knew Lin Feng's name. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo, the Eternal God. You found another secret Luan stone? Heavenly King Zhao Kuo had Lin Feng's contact information, so he asked Lin Feng directly. Yes, Lin Feng replied. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. He was speechless. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had spent 27,000 Hongmeng origin crystals, which was almost bankrupt, to buy a secret Luan stone from Lin Feng. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng had found another one. What kind of luck was this? If he had known, he wouldn't have bought it. As he thought about it, Heavenly King Zhao Kuo couldn't catch his breath. This was too infuriating. Zhuing, Great King Blue Hammer, Heavenly King Zhao Kuo, and 2 more I don't know. At this moment, Lin Feng had already arrived at an empty space. Below him was what looked like a lotus, and there were 8 seats on a high platform. 7 of the seats were flickering with white light, so the cultivators could clearly see them. The last one was empty. The 6 cultivators in the other 6 seats focused their attention at the same time. Every one of them had extraordinary strength. Lin Feng knew Zhu Ying, Great King Blue Hammer, and Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. The other 2 cultivators, Taoist En and Wang Yu, were mind cultivators who had arrived after Lin Feng had entered the 100 million wheel splendor. Lin Feng naturally didn't know them. However, there was a figure that Lin Feng was extremely familiar with. The Eternal God. They had met once in the Taichung deity realm. Lin Feng would never forget his figure. That battle had brought great pressure to the 7th Mercenary Alliance, as he had possessed heaven-defying abilities. If the strongest person in the 7th Mercenary Alliance, Yuan Venerate Demonic Spear, hadn't come, the situation would have been reversed by the Eternal God. The Eternal God smiled faintly as their eyes met. He was very happy to see Lin Feng here. Once they entered the core area of the secret realm, Lin Feng would be in a hopeless situation with nowhere to escape. He had never underestimated Lin Feng. After Lin Feng had killed the eternal god knew that this was an extraordinary human who would be even more difficult to deal with than Huang Quan. He knew that Lin Feng would definitely come here. Thus, he waited patiently. In the end, he had waited. Chapter 2845. Taking a day off for Blade Shatters the Galaxy. At it, please wait for a moment. Once the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 2846. Lin Feng was very calm. He was so calm that even he himself was surprised. It was a disaster for Lin Feng to encounter a powerhouse at the level of the Eternal Eternity God at any time. This was a giant in the Inquisition of Universe 7. The Eternal Eternity God was the one who killed Yellow Spring that day. However, Lin Feng didn't panic in the slightest when they met on a narrow path today. He believed that he was strong enough to protect himself, even if his opponent was the Eternal Eternity God, who had been famous for a long time in the original universe. The inheritance treasure of the Master of 100 Million Wheels has no special restrictions. As long as you reach the standard and have the strength to obtain the secret stone, you'll have a chance to obtain the true inheritance treasure of the secret realm. Seeing the other 6 powerhouses, Lin Feng understood. Because these 6 powerhouses were the strongest in the 100 Million Wheels tomb. Taoist and Wang Yu. Lin Feng learned about the other 2 powerhouses from Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. They were both mental cultivators who had arrived after he entered the 100 Million Wheels tomb. Taoist is slightly stronger. He comes from the Tao Amplification Palace, and his strength is on par with Jianing. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo said, Wang Yu is slightly weaker. He is a mental cultivator from the Eternal Corporation, so he has a lot of advantages here. Because the Master of 100 Million Wheels was a mental cultivator, the cultivators in the center of the secret realm had a lot of advantages. Therefore, Heavenly King Zhao Kuo concluded that mental cultivators would also have a lot of advantages after entering the core of the secret realm. So, among these cultivators, the one most likely to obtain the inheritance treasure of the Master of 100 Million Wheels is Taoist in, Lin Feng said. In theory, you can say that. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo said, but no one knows what will happen after the secret stone is completely opened. No one knows what kind of treasure the Master of 100 Million Wheels left behind, or what kind of test is in the core area. It's possible for anyone. They can obtain treasures, or they can die. I think the second possibility is more likely. Although Heavenly King Zhao Kuo was joking, Lin Feng knew what he was thinking. Why did the secret realm leave so little information the last 2 times it opened? Even if it was tens of thousands of eras, there should be some information left. It was very likely that all the cultivators who had entered the core of the secret realm had perished. However, the powerhouses still entered without hesitation. This was the path of the Hongming Sea experts. Even if there was only a sliver of hope, as long as he could obtain the inheritance treasure of the innate Master of 100 Million Wheels, the Master of the Universe, he would definitely soar into the heavens. A true powerhouse would not cower in fear. Shall we cooperate? Heavenly King Zhao Kuo suddenly asked. You trust me that much? Lin Feng smiled. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo said, apart from you, the other 5 are all from different superpowers. They might work together in the Million Wheel Grave, but once we enter the core area, no one will trust each other. Plus, we've worked together before, so we can trust each other. Lin Feng smiled. All right, but I'll say this first. I have a death grudge with the Eternal God. The one from the Taichu Inquisition? Got it. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo said, when we work together, he won't dare to touch you. That's fine. Lin Feng agreed. This was not a bad thing for him. After chatting with Heavenly King Zhao Kuo for a while, Lin Feng learned about the other 5 powerhouses. This was also very important to him. When the time came, they would all be competitors, and no one would be polite to each other. No cultivator appeared for the 8th seat. Lin Feng was not idle either. He refined the treasure while waiting patiently. 8 seats were equivalent to 8 secret Lewin stones. It was indeed easy to obtain at the beginning. After all, there were many powerhouses, so there were many secret Lewin stones. However, there were fewer powerhouses and fewer secret Lewin stones towards the end. There was only one secret Lewin stone left. It was extremely difficult to find it in the vast second level of the secret realm. There were not many powerhouses left who had the ability to obtain this secret Lewin stone. According to Heavenly King Zhao Kuo, he had a brother who was also from the Sky Swarm Alliance and was searching for the secret Lewin stone. The Zhou Corporation and Dao Yin Palace still had powerhouses in the second level of the secret realm. However, the strongest were already there. Time passed slowly. All the experts were burning with anxiety. Only Lin Feng was happy and content. "I've finally refined it." Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. A large red and black drum appeared in the sky above his source sea. It was surging with flames and was extremely domineering. This was the supreme chaotic treasure he had obtained early on, the Four Annihilations Wheel. This was a treasure used to attack the Source Sea and the Source Spirit. It was divided into 4 levels: the Dichun Sha, the Fekta Sha, the Mengjun Sha, and the Great Lewin Sha. The power of each level increased tenfold. If I use the Source Sea, I can only use the Fekta Sha. If I use the Source Soul, I can use the 3rd level, the Mengjun Sha. Although Lin Feng's Source Sea was strong, it had just undergone a metamorphosis and had not developed much. Not only had his Source Soul completed its metamorphosis, but had also been strengthened to the perfect peak Yuan Venerate level, which was enough to use the 3rd level, the Mengjun Sha. Of course, this was the upper limit of what he could use alone. If he combined it with his mental cultivation and executed it with his perfect Source Heart Force, he could use the 3rd level, the Mengjun Sha, when he used the Source Sea, and the strongest, the Great Will Sha, when he used the Source Soul. Compared to a controlled treasure, the Source Soul and Source Sea is easier to control. Lin Feng had refined it before, so he naturally knew this and quickly entered a state of cultivation. The 1st level, the Earthchen Sha, was the simplest and easiest to master. Although the 2nd level, the Fekta Sha, had a certain level of difficulty, Lin Feng was able to master it in a short time thanks to his perfect Source Soul. The Mengjun Sha, which was cultivating the 3rd level, underwent a change. Hua! Endless white light flashed. Lin Feng let out a soft cry of surprise and awoke from his cultivation state. The ancient runes below him were spreading out like snakes. The originally gloomy ground had turned into rays of light and was already lit up. The broken ancient runes condensed into one and formed a strange eye. In an instant, his perfect Source Heart Force erupted. The grayish-black eye contained an ancient and mysterious power that flickered brightly. A figure appeared in the originally empty 8th seat. The 7 experts, including Lin Feng, all looked over with a cold glint in their eyes. The newcomer carried a huge sword on his back, and the short horn on his brow bone revealed a lofty appearance. There was a metal ring on his forehead, and there were stripes on his ink-black skin. He was surging with killing intent and overbearing battle intent. The armor on his chest had a clear military insignia. Musin. How could Lin Feng not recognize him? This was the powerhouse from 13 Corps who had been chasing after him. He was a peak Yuan Venerate and wasn't any weaker than the other 6 powerhouses here. The fact that he was able to obtain the last secret stone and step onto the 8th seat was well-deserved. Lin Feng. Musin's eyes narrowed. When enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Following Musin's arrival, all the ancient runes lit up. The huge platform seemed to have activated an ancient password as it rumbled. A grayish-black eye lit up in the void, and a blurry figure appeared. Chapter 28:47. The grayish-black eyes glowed as the blurry figure twisted. Although it was just a glimpse, Lin Feng had seen the statue twice in the 2nd level of the secret realm. Although the 2 statues were different in shape, their aura and appearance were exactly the same. It was extremely similar to the twisted figure in front of him. The master of 100 million wheels. Come here, A voice seemed to come from the depths of the grayish-black eyes and went straight to the depths of his soul. The void turned dark, and the white light disappeared in an instant, as if swallowed by the grayish-black eyes. The 8 seats that were originally sealed had disappeared without anyone noticing. The entire space was empty, leaving only darkness. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Everyone's eyes were sharp and vigilant. The 8 experts on the high platform originally had nothing to do with each other and couldn't touch each other. Even their auras were isolated, but now they appeared in the same area at the same time. There was no longer any barrier. Ta! Lin Feng reacted instantly. With just a shift, he arrived beside Heavenly King Zhao Kuei. Clang! Heavenly King Zhao Kuang's 4 arms shone brightly. 2 light swords and 2 spears crisscrossed. The blue light armor formed a halo that protected himself and Lin Feng. They stood back to back. Although they didn't look at each other, they smiled knowingly. They cooperated very well. Clang! Musashi frowned. He was just hesitating whether to take the opportunity to attack Lin Feng. But seeing Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's reaction, he immediately dispelled the idea. Fighting 1 against 2 was just asking for trouble. Not to mention the situation in front of him was completely unknown. On the other hand, the Eternal Eternity God, who had the deepest grudge with Lin Feng, was calm, as if he didn't see Lin Feng at all. He was unmoved. Taoist and Wang Yu, Ho Ying, and Great King Blue Hammer all put up their defenses with serious expressions. Rumble. The black space suddenly shook as if there was an earthquake. Huge vibrations came from all directions. It was very familiar. This is... Lin Feng's eyes flashed. On the other side, Musashi's eyes were wide open and his teeth were chattering. The auras that were descending from all directions were still fresh in his memory, because he had been taught a lesson by these monsters before. He had suffered heavy losses and suffered heavy injuries. Giant. Lin Feng had already seen the arrival of the giants from afar. They were exactly the same as the giants in the giants' world. They had huge bodies, terrifying strength and defense. Lin Feng was sure that it would not be easy for the other 7 experts here to kill these giants. There's more. The tremors were still not over. Waves of ear-piercing sounds followed the stomping of the giant. Lin Feng was also very familiar with this sound. Ghostface Bat. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's voice rang out from behind him. This ear-piercing sound was deeply engraved in his heart. Eternal Eternity God and Great King Blue Hammer's eyes lit up. They had both entered the Yama domain before. Thump, thump, thump. His heartbeat sped up inexplicably. Along with the appearance of the ghost-faced bat, the 3rd aura also descended at the same time. Zhu Ying, Taoistan, and Wang Yu all moved slightly. It was the trouble they had encountered before. Will impact. Each of the green eyes had a feeler on top of each eye. They were flickering like fireflies. Every time the light flashed, it was an attack of will. Although Lin Feng had not fought with these tentacle green eyes before, they were the least threatening to him. Among the 8 experts, 3 of them had a will that was comparable to transcendent almighties. Lin Feng was one of them. Moreover, Lin Feng himself had a defensive treasure. His defense against the tentacle green eyes was not much weaker than Taoist An's. Whoosh! The first to react was Zhu Ying. His black, thin, and small figure instantly burst out with astonishing speed. Without any defense, he directly rushed towards the monster army ahead like a ghost in the night. The call came from the front. Not only Lin Feng heard it, but all 8 experts heard it. Taoistan also moved. His expression would not change even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. His smile showed that he was very confident. Unlike Zhu Ying, who had a ghostly movement technique, Taoistan paid more attention to his own defense. Go! Okay. Heavenly King Zhao Xian and Lin Feng were undoubtedly the most tacit among the 8 experts. It was not a simple reaction like Zhu Ying. Instead, they had analyzed the situation. In such an environment, it was impossible to deal with all changes by remaining unchanged because they did not know how many monsters there were. It was also impossible to cooperate with other experts because they did not trust each other. The best way was to break out of the encirclement by following the source of the voice. That voice seemed to come from the distant past, but also from the endless future. They had to rely on themselves. Since they were already here, they might as well make the best of it. There was no way out, and they would not hesitate. Heavenly King Zhao Xian was in front. His two spears danced with a light sword, forcibly opening a bloody path. Heavenly King Zhao Xian was most familiar with the ghost-faced bats. Against the tentacle green eyes, Heavenly King Zhao Xian's defense was also extraordinary. Except the giants. Boom! Explosive attack power and amazing defense. Heavenly King Zhao Xian's expression changed drastically as soon as he collided with the giants. Although he did not use his full strength, his attack power had reached that of an almighty, but it only forced the giants to retreat. How terrifying was their defense! Although the number of giants in front of him was far less than the ghost-faced bats and the tentacle green eyes, even if there were only 4 or 5 of them, it was still extremely difficult to deal with. Among them, the one who suffered the most was Musin. That day, the elite team he led was taught a lesson by the giants. Especially when the giants saw that the blue crystal lake of the sacred land had been emptied, their red eyes turned berserk, and their strength was even more terrifying. Tribulation of 10 desires. Suddenly, a familiar force appeared. Heavenly King Zhao Xian's vision blurred. He saw that the originally powerful and invincible giants were suddenly stunned on the spot, as if they had been petrified. A few of them even knelt on the ground, their eyes blurred. What? Let's go. Lin Feng's voice sounded behind him. Heavenly King Zhao Xian quivered and instantly understood. The giants were afraid of illusions? Oh, what? Heavenly King Zhao Xian was not the only one. Wang Yu, Green Hammer King, Musin, and the others also saw this strange scene. They were surprised and looked at Lin Feng in surprise. Musin, in particular, opened his eyes wider than lanterns. At this moment, how could he not understand? How infuriating! Musin gritted his teeth. Among them, only Lin Feng could deal with the giants so skillfully. It was obvious that Lin Feng was the one who did all the good things in the sacred land of the giants. In the end, they were the ones who had to take the blame. How shameless! Huh! The furious Musin instantly unleashed his strength. Passing through the ghost-faced bats and the tentacle green eyes, the giant sword tore through space and went straight for Lin Feng. New and old grudges all surged. What inheritance treasure of the master of million wheels! Musin did not care at all. There was only one thing he wanted to do now: kill Lin Feng. Chapter 2848. Origins Sea Charge, 5th Level Starfall. The towering city of will smashed toward Musin. The moment Musin launched his attack, Lin Feng had already taken the initiative to attack. One thought's supremacy naturally wouldn't passively wait for his opponent to attack first. Once he got close, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lin Feng's Origin Sea Charge was very powerful. Almost all the elites of the 13 Corps had died under this move. Especially after Lin Feng had mastered the city of will smash, he had made up for the disadvantage of not having an Origin Sea Charge treasure and unleashed its power to the extreme. However, his opponent this time wasn't simple either. Musin's strength wasn't any weaker than the other 6 experts present. Moreover, not only did he have the sole defense of the supreme chaos treasure, but his own origin soul and were also quite strong. Most importantly, his internal universe was stronger than Lin Feng's. It was a battle of equal strength. Lin Feng's invincible Origin Sea Charge was deflected by Musin. It was like 2 armies confronting each other in the middle of the battlefield, engaging in a fierce melee. However, in fact, it was disadvantageous for Lin Feng. The attacking side consumed more energy than the defending side. Moreover, the power of his attacks came again and again. The second attack was weakened and the third attack was exhausted. His first attack was blocked, and Musashi's confidence rose spontaneously. His internal universe exerted more pressure. As a top-notch expert, Musashi was very clear on how to make use of his advantages. If he took advantage, he would consolidate his advantage and expand it step by step. Muzin was very confident that he could defeat Lin Feng this time. He knew very well that once the Origin Sea charge failed, not only would Lin Feng fall into an extremely passive situation, but his vitality would also be greatly damaged. At that time, killing Lin Feng would be a piece of cake. At this moment, chaos. A terrifying force spread out from the depths of Wu Tsang's heart, causing his hair to stand on end. Wu Tsang was naturally wary of danger, so he reacted almost subconsciously, breaking away from the Origin Sea's attack to block the astonishing spear. It was Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. The power of his long arm erupted and pierced towards Muzin. He had been cooperating with Lin Feng for quite some time. Heavenly King Zhao knew that the situation was dire. He couldn't just watch as Lin Feng was defeated and severely injured. They were allies. Pooh! Muzin was caught off guard by Heavenly King Zhao Jie's sudden attack. Blood splattered everywhere as he tried to defend himself in a panic. That was Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. Even if it was a one-on-one under normal circumstances, Muzin might not be able to block him, let alone now. However, this was not a fatal blow. The real fatal blow came from Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's attack, which broke the stalemate between Lin Feng and Muzin. The scale that was originally slightly tilted was now completely tilted towards Lin Feng. Boom! Lin Feng naturally wouldn't let go of such an opportunity. His full-strength explosive strike finally blasted open Muzin's firm defense, and it was like breaking open a gap on a city wall. Even though it was small, it was sufficient to change the direction of the entire battle. Oh no! Muzin was aghast. The huge city of Will crushed over, and the energy of the perfect source, sea, covered him like a huge wave. The pressure he felt at this moment was unprecedented. He felt fear, the fear that the other members of his team had once felt. It came from the tiny human Huang Zun. Once his soul defense treasure was broken, what awaited him would be a disaster. At this moment, Muzin was somewhat regretful that he had been too impulsive just now. He had forgotten to take into account the existence of Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. He had only wanted to kill Lin Feng to avenge his brother, and had neglected everything else. Damn it! Muzin gritted his teeth and resisted, but he was in a disadvantageous position. It was difficult to move forward, and it was difficult to recover. The city of Will smashed again and again, and the gap in the Source Soul defense treasure grew bigger and bigger. The energy of the Source Sea continued to seep in, gradually disintegrating his defense. Just as the defense line was about to collapse, a strange energy suddenly descended. Hua! At this moment, it was as if time had stopped. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's expression changed slightly. The blue light armor flashed and turned into a huge shield in front of Lin Feng. In an instant, with a bang, the two forces exploded. Lin Feng pursed his lips, then withdrew his attack, and quickly retreated. In the distance, a robed figure pointed the scepter in his hand, and the light appeared again. Chi! The time energy turned into a sparkling dot, flying slowly like a cannonball. But the instant it touched the shield, the explosion was extremely terrifying. The attack power was extremely shocking. Boom! Heavenly King Zhao Kuo defended again. Lin Feng swallowed the great source soul fruit and retreated with Heavenly King Zhao Kuo while recovering the energy of his source sea. Although it was a pity, it was impossible to kill Muzin now. Shua! Muzin's face was pale. He stood in the void and turned his head to look behind him. The robed figure was holding the scepter, and his eyes were shining slightly. There was a calm smile on his face, as if everything was under his control. Behind him, the huge wheel of time was rolling, controlling every minute of time. The Eternal God, why did you save me? Muzin asked. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Eternal God's voice was faint. My goal is the same as yours. You also want to kill Lin Feng? Muzin frowned. Yes. The Eternal God's answer was simple. Why? Muzin asked. You don't need to know. The Eternal God said, now that he has joined forces with Heavenly King Zhao Kuo, you can't deal with him alone. The only way is to trust me and join forces with me. Muzin's expression changed. Why should I trust you? Because you have to. Joining forces was the general trend. Especially in the current environment, joining forces would not only cause more damage, but it would also save a lot of energy. Lin Feng and Heavenly King Zhao Kuo were the first to join forces, followed by Muzin and the Eternal God, and then Great King Blue Hammer and Wang Yu. However, among the 8 experts, there were 2 who were strong and confident in their own abilities, charging at the front alone. Bai Ying and Endowrin. One was good at offense, while the other was good at defense. If they joined forces, they would be flawless. However, the 2 were rather arrogant and disdained joining forces. Indeed, with their strength, they didn't need to do so to break through this array of giants, ghost-faced bats, and tentacles. They just needed to expend a bit of energy. Whoosh! The first to leave this darkness was Bai Ying. He didn't need to deal with the giants. With his movement techniques, he could dodge the giants' attacks. His speed was also the fastest, so it was reasonable for him to be the first to pass through the dark void. However, the second to pass wasn't Endowrin. It was Lin Feng and Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. Lin Feng had illusions to deal with the giants, and Lin Feng and Heavenly King Zhao Kuo had experience dealing with ghost-faced bats. Compared to the other cultivators, they had a huge advantage. As soon as they entered this new world, Lin Feng and Heavenly King Zhao Kuo were amazed. Welcome to the realm of 100 million wheels. A dignified voice suddenly rang out in their minds, reverberating endlessly. This is the eternal world that I spent my entire life to create. Enter to obtain the pearl of eternity. You will meet me. Chapter 28:49. Every word and sentence was like a piece of steel smashing into his mind, unable to be erased. The majestic figure stood in the void, and his voice was undeniable. Suddenly, the scene before him changed. This was an endless land with no boundaries. There were 8 cracks in the void ahead. Sizzle, sizzle. Every void contained an intense amount of energy. Through the cracks, one could see the changing scenery. The energy source and 7 lights flashed in the realm of 100 million chakras, forming a unique landscape. It seems to be a test from a master of 100 million chakras, said Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. And there's no way out. Lin Feng looked around. This realm of 100 million chakras was like a sealed arena. Other than these 8 eternal worlds, there was nothing else. In fact, ever since the ancient runes had condensed and the secret realm space had suddenly changed, they had already embarked on a path of no return. If they wanted to live, they had to continue moving forward. Zhu Ying has already entered. Heavenly King Zhao Kuang knew. Lin Feng nodded. In the dark void, he and Heavenly King Zhao Kuang had shaken off the other 5 experts, including Daoistan. Only Zhu Ying had not been seen. Clearly, he was faster than them. Moreover, there were only 7 lights in the 8 eternal worlds. Each light had a suction force. As long as one got close and did not resist, they would be able to enter. Every eternal world seems different, said Heavenly King Zhao Kuang. Half of it is related to the body and origin power. The other half is related to the soul and origin sea. Following the light of the eternal worlds, Lin Feng could see the tip of the iceberg. He could also feel the rules of the worlds. When they entered the realm of 100 million chakras, the master of 100 million chakras had already explained everything. These 8 eternal worlds were created by the master of 100 million chakras with his life. There are 4 kinds of marks. Heavenly King Zhao Kuang noticed the unique marks on the cracks of the eternal worlds. There were 8 eternal worlds, and there were 2 marks each under the light of the cracks. Oh, Lin Feng also noticed, but he did not know what the marks were for. While he was hesitating, the void suddenly distorted, and a slightly plump figure with a horsetail whisk appeared. Just like Lin Feng, he was slightly surprised. His smile froze. The light on his body flashed, and he saw Lin Feng and Heavenly King Zhao Kuang. Haha, you 2 are really fast. Daoist and walked over with a smile. There was no enmity between them. Previously, when they brushed past each other in the dark void, there was no conflict of interest between them. Taoist, and Heavenly King Zhao Kuo greeted. Heavenly King, Taoist nodded, then looked at Lin Feng and said, "Young friend, you have strong willpower. You flatter me." Lin Feng and Taoist looked at each other. They were both heart cultivators and could sense each other very clearly. Not only was this smiling Taoist and's willpower not inferior to his strength was also unfathomable. Oh, after exchanging a few pleasantries, Taoist walked towards the eternal world and sized it up curiously. Lin Feng and Heavenly King Zhao Kuo were not in a hurry. Each of the 8 eternal realms was unique. One wrong step could lead to another wrong step. They had to choose carefully. Moreover, they had arrived early, and there were still 4 other powerful cultivators who had yet to arrive. They completely had room to choose. Through the eternal world's light, he could see a part of the eternal world and feel the world's laws. This was very good information for making choices. After all, they only needed to enter one of them and obtain the eternal pearl. Whoosh! A strange energy flashed. Lin Feng was slightly surprised. He looked at Taoist and saw that his right hand was placed on the unique symbol under the crack. He was actually able to touch the symbols, one after another. Taoist was very fast. He touched every symbol as if they contained something. Whoosh! Heavenly King Zhao Kuo followed closely behind Taoist and checked the unique symbols one by one. However, his expression was puzzled. The symbols did not react at all when he released his energy. Perfect heart force. Only a heart cultivator could do that. Let me. Lin Feng stepped forward and placed his right hand on one of the symbols. Instantly, a calling feeling arose spontaneously. The perfect heart force resonated, and a message appeared in his mind. Eternal body, elementary level, 10 eras. Lin Feng was slightly surprised. He then looked at the eternal world on the right. Perfect heart force appeared. Eternal power, intermediate level, 100 eras. Eternal indestructible, advanced level, 1,000 eras. Eternal universe, limit, 10,000 eras. After Lin Feng checked the 4 eternal worlds on the other side, he was full of questions. He did not know what they meant. However, there was no need to immediately come to a conclusion. Under Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's curious gaze, Lin Feng checked the 4 eternal worlds on the other side. Eternal soul, elementary level, 10 eras. Eternal thoughts, intermediate level, 100 eras. Eternal ocean, advanced level, 1,000 eras. Eternal million wheels, limit, 10,000 eras. The 8 eternal worlds were all different. Just as Lin Feng guessed, half of the 8 eternal worlds were related to the physical body and origin energy. The other half was related to the soul and origin sea. These could be seen from the world laws. However, what did elementary, intermediate, advanced, and limit have to do with the later eras? I feel that elementary, intermediate, advanced, and limit correspond to the difficulty of obtaining the Pearl of Eternity. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo muttered. They were in a cooperative relationship, so Lin Feng did not hide it from Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. Many people had many ideas. It was better to pool their ideas together. So the later eras correspond to the time limits. The higher the difficulty, the longer the time limits. Lin Feng pondered. It seems so. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo was not completely sure. That's not the case. Every time the secret realm opens, the time is fixed. Taoist smiled and said, the later eras refer to the time in the eternal worlds, not the real time. So the time flow is different? Heavenly King Zhao Kuo asked. Taoist waved his horsetail whisk. Yes, but the time in the eternal worlds is indisputable. The two of you can take your time to consider. I'll take my leave first. As soon as he finished speaking, Taoist disappeared. Of the 8 eternal worlds, only 6 of the 7 lights were left. It shouldn't be that simple. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo frowned. He did not panic because of Taoist's entry. Lin Feng nodded. If it's just based on difficulty, those who come early will naturally choose the one with the lowest difficulty. They will have a great advantage. However, it could also be that simple. The higher the difficulty, the more time is given. I can't guess the thoughts of the Wheelmaster. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo smiled bitterly. After pondering for a moment, Lin Feng said to Heavenly King Zhao Kuo, "Let's go. We know what we need to know. Let's test our intuition. It's time to choose." They're almost catching up. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo sighed softly. A glint flashed his eyes. He turned into a stream of light and entered the eternal worlds. Lin Feng smiled and entered as well. Genius remembered the address of this site in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2850. The 8 eternal realms were split in pairs. Zhu Ying and Heavenly King Zhao Kuo chose the eternal realm of the source power and physical body. Taoist and Lin Feng chose the eternal realm of the soul and source sea. Among them, Taoist chose the 10,000 eternal thoughts. Lin Feng considered it for a long time before finally choosing the eternal ocean. Because the 10,000 eternal thoughts had been chosen first, Lin Feng had only considered the elementary eternal soul and the advanced eternal ocean. The eternal 100 million wheel, which seemed to be the most difficult, wasn't within Lin Feng's range of choices. Choosing the ultimate level without knowing anything, regardless of whether it was related to difficulty or not, was irrational. Furthermore, Lin Feng also felt that the right to choose first existed. Otherwise, the existence of the dark void would have been meaningless. The strong would choose first. This rule was clear and definite. Lin Feng hadn't considered the intermediate 10,000 eternal thoughts during his hesitation. Therefore, it wouldn't affect him much even if Taoist chose it. Lin Feng actually hoped that Taoist would choose either the eternal soul or the eternal ocean. That way, he wouldn't have to hesitate. The eternal soul was undoubtedly related to the source soul. The eternal ocean was related to the source sea. Based on his current conjecture, the elementary, intermediate, and advanced levels represented the difficulty, while the later levels represented the time limit. If that was the case, the best choice would be to choose the elementary, eternal soul. Furthermore, Lin Feng's perfect source soul was 100 times stronger than a peak Yuan venerates, so it would be like a hot knife through butter. On the other hand, the perfect source sea had just transformed and was like an undeveloped field. Although the upper limit was extremely high, it was actually disadvantageous for passing the test and obtaining the eternal pearl. In particular, its difficulty level was advanced. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo chose the elementary difficulty level, the eternal body. Zhu Ying chose the intermediate difficulty level, the eternal power. Both of them chose something that seemed to be relatively easy. Even Taoist chose the intermediate difficulty level. It was a smart choice. If the difficulty level was low, there might be mysteries within. If the difficulty level was too high, it would be easy to fall into danger if one made the wrong choice. The moderate choice was the most suitable choice in the current situation where they knew nothing about it. Therefore, Lin Feng chose the higher difficulty level. On the other hand, Lin Feng was confident in his source sea. Even if he couldn't obtain the eternal pearl for the time being, he still had 1,000 eras left. This was the real reason why Lin Feng had chosen the eternal ocean. He needed time. He's here. A boundless suction force pulled Lin Feng into the eternal world. This was one of the 8 eternal worlds that the 100 million wheel master had spent his entire life to create. It was a beautiful world, a blue ocean world. There was no land in this world, only an ocean filled with the energy of the origin sea. 2 layers of energy. Above the sea, there was perfect origin core force. Within the ocean was the perfect soul origin power. The 2 were like the yin and yang of the world, perfectly fusing together and forming the laws of the eternal world. 2 kinds of life forms. At the 100 million wheel realm, one could see the tip of the iceberg of each eternal world through the light. Lin Feng had seen the life system of the eternal sea before. 2 different kinds of life. One kind of life form was called the Garuda bird. It had a human face and a bird body. It was incomparably huge and soared above the ocean. The other kind of life form was called the four-eyed sea dragon. It had a human face and a dragon body. There was an astonishing number of them, and they resided in the ocean. The Garuda bird and the four-eyed sea dragon fought all year round, but there was never a clear victor. After entering the ocean, the Garuda bird's abilities were useless. After leaving the ocean, the four-eyed sea dragon would become the Garuda bird's food. Both had their strengths. Where is the eternal pearl? This was Lin Feng's only mission. Currently, there were only two possibilities. It was either in the air or in the ocean. Lin Feng preferred the latter, because this eternal world was called the eternal ocean. Moreover, the 8 eternal worlds were clearly separated. What he entered belonged to the soul and the origin sea, which was closely related to the origin sea. The eternal ocean was filled with rich origin sea energy. If the eternal pearl was in the air, didn't that mean that he didn't need to enter the eternal ocean? Lin Feng instantly dived into the water. As soon as he entered the eternal ocean, he felt a majestic energy. If the origin sea was empty, Lin Feng was sure that it would be perfectly replenished in an instant. Here, he could use the origin sea without limit. He didn't need to worry about anything else. However, the only thing that could make him use the origin sea was the four-eyed sea dragon. It lived in the eternal ocean, and its origin sea was probably stronger than his. Using the origin sea against it might not be easy. He dove down. Lin Feng gradually felt the pressure coming from the eternal ocean. The rich energy of the sea had both advantages and disadvantages. It could instantly replenish his perfect origin sea, but it could also destroy it. It was like 100 water pipes filling a vat at the same time. If the vat was big enough, it wouldn't be a problem. But if the vat wasn't big enough, the force of the 100 water pipes would cause the vat to collapse. Moreover, there were far more than 100 water pipes. The deeper he went into the eternal ocean, the greater the pressure. From 100 water pipes to 1,000, 10,000, and even 100,000. This won't do. Lin Feng felt that his perfect origin sea was close to its limit. If he went further down, his origin sea would be damaged. Once it was damaged, not only would its strength decrease, but it would also be very difficult to recover. After floating for thousands of miles, Lin Feng stopped. It's bottomless. Lin Feng calmed down. The depth he had just dived was probably less than 1/10,000th of the eternal ocean. It was just the tip of the iceberg, and he didn't have the strength to explore further. To continue diving, his perfect origin sea had to be strong enough. At least 100, 1,000, or even 10,000 times stronger than it was now. It was very difficult. Lin Feng knew that his perfect origin sea had already transformed. Although it had just begun to develop, there were still infinite possibilities and limits. But even if it developed to the limit, could it really reach the deepest part of the eternal ocean? Lin Feng wasn't confident at all. In the eternal ocean, he could truly feel the power of the Lord of 100 million wheels. He was a Khanate Almighty, the ruler of the universe. Even if this was only a small part of his power, it was already unreachable. So, the difficulty here is advanced. So, the time limit to obtain the Pearl of Eternity is 1,000 eras. Lin Feng was enlightened. Judging from the current situation, the eternal ocean's difficulty could indeed be called advanced. But the advanced level was already so difficult. The limit, what would it be like? While thinking, Lin Feng's heart suddenly trembled as he looked into the distance. It's here. One of the life forms in the eternal ocean, or rather a race, the four-eyed sea dragon, was here. Chapter 28:51. He had not encountered it before because of the vastness of the eternal ocean and the fact that he had not been in the eternal ocean for a long time. However, if he continued to stay in the eternal ocean, he would encounter it sooner or later. Even if he did not encounter it now, he would encounter it in the future. Roar! The four-eyed sea dragon had 4 eyes, 2 above and 2 below. With its horns and scales, it was like a fish in water in the ocean. As the 2 eyes below lit up, the endless seawater turned into water dragons that attacked Lin Feng. This was their territory, overlapping silken shadows. Lin Feng took the initiative to defend and was not in a hurry to attack. Before fighting with the four-eyed sea dragon, it was important to know its attacking methods and strength. After all, There was only one four-eyed sea dragon now. If he encountered 3, 5, or even 10 four-eyed sea dragons, he would not have the chance to test it out. The attack of the water dragons was not strong. It was more of a geographical advantage. It was similar to controlling objects. However, the objects it controlled were the seawater of the eternal ocean. Because the seawater itself had energy, the water dragons could attack. However, the four-eyed sea dragon's attack could not be stacked. This four-eyed sea dragon is only 1,000 meters long. It is smaller than the four-eyed sea dragon I've seen before. In the 100 million wheel realm, Lin Feng had seen many four-eyed sea dragons through the light of the eternal world. Many of them were over 10,000 meters long. From the current situation, the strength of the four-eyed sea dragon seemed to be related to its length. The longer the body, the stronger it was. Pop, pop, pop. The water dragons kept attacking, but they could not break through Lin Feng's defense. The four-eyed sea dragon was also angry. The two eyes above it lit up, and the surrounding seawater instantly turned into a vacuum as the energy was sucked away. Boom! It went straight into the depths of Lin Feng's origin sea. It really knows the origin sea impact. Lin Feng wasn't surprised. If one lived in the eternal ocean and didn't know how to use the source sea attack, it would be too unreasonable. In a battle in the eternal ocean, the source sea attack was a competition of pure power. A protracted battle wouldn't work. Because everyone was the same, the origin sea impact would instantly replenish the energy of the origin sea. The replenishment was faster than the consumption. Average power. Lin Feng easily defended against it. Those who were good at offense were not necessarily good at defense. Lin Feng was one such example. However, against this 1,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon, Lin Feng was still able to handle it with ease. The city of Wool stood firm, and with a burst of perfect origin heart force, he instantly counterattacked. Oh! Lin Feng could feel the four-eyed sea dragon's fear. It wasn't fear of his own strength, but an innate fear of the perfect source heart force. Lin Feng smiled. The four-eyed sea dragons were afraid of the Garuda bird. It was their natural enemy, and the Garuda bird used perfect core force. With a counterattack, Lin Feng quickly killed the four-eyed sea dragon. Dragon Soul. Lin Feng obtained the four-eyed sea dragon's dragon soul and immediately refined it. As expected, the dragon soul was the crystallization of the eternal sea and the source of energy for the four-eyed sea dragon. Refining a dragon soul would allow him to develop a perfect origin sea. Although he could also establish a perfect origin sea through normal cultivation, the speed and efficiency of refining a dragon soul were far inferior. However, killing a four-eyed sea dragon wasn't an easy task. Thus, I only need to kill the four-eyed sea dragon and establish a perfect origin sea. Then I just need to dive into the depths of the eternal sea bit by bit. So easy. Lin Feng was a bit suspicious. If that was the case, then this advanced level of difficulty was too ordinary. Although it wasn't easy to kill a four-eyed sea dragon, he could choose the weaker ones. As for the stronger four-eyed sea dragons that he wasn't confident in dealing with, he could deal with them later. Although he was suspicious, he didn't find any flaws. After pondering for a while, Lin Feng began to implement this plan. Rather than hesitating, he might as well do it first. If it didn't work, he could change to another method. After all, he had plenty of time. A long period of cultivation had begun. For Lin Feng, this was a rare moment of relaxation. He hadn't experienced this in a long time. He was able to cultivate in such a relaxed manner without worrying about anything else. There was only one opponent here, the four-eyed sea dragon. It was better to be safe than sorry. Lin Feng didn't start a massacre, nor did he go deep into the eternal sea. Instead, he cultivated slowly above the sea surface, killing a four-eyed sea dragon from time to time to establish a perfect origin sea. Most of his thoughts were focused on cultivating and mastering the chaos cardinal treasures, the four vanishing wheel evils. How can an origin sea attack be separated from an origin sea attack treasure? A good origin sea attack treasure was enough to increase the power of an origin sea attack. In particular, the eternal sea was very suitable for origin sea attacks. There was no better way to increase the power of an Origin Sea attack here. In other places, it would take a long time to recover. But here, after one attack, he could immediately launch another attack. As long as he could win, he would continue to win. Di Chun evils, Tianji evils, Mengjun evils, Hongluan evils. The power of the 4 Vanishing Wheel evils increased tenfold. Lin Feng's Origin Sea attack had originally only allowed him to use the 2nd Vanishing Wheel evils. However, after killing enough 4-eyed sea dragons and refining their dragon souls, he had been able to use the 3rd Vanishing Wheel evils in less than 2,000 years. However, the 4th Vanishing Wheel evils consumed a lot of Lin Feng's energy. Although he could use it with his perfect Source Heart Force, he couldn't recover his perfect Source Heart Force in the Eternal Ocean, and he couldn't recover his Origin Sea's energy after leaving the Eternal Ocean. He couldn't just keep going up and down without stopping. Therefore, Lin Feng chose to use his Origin Sea's energy to execute the Great Wheel Fiend. The consumption of Source Sea energy was huge, but the Eternal Sea replenished it very quickly. This was the strongest power of a Chaos Cardinal treasure. Just like the strongest ability of the Phantom Spider Hand, it was extremely difficult to master and execute. The consumption was even greater. More than 90% of peak Yuan Venerates couldn't master the strongest power of a Chaos Cardinal treasure because the requirements were too high. Lin Feng had done it. After spending 2 epochs of cultivation, he had successfully executed the strongest of the Vanishing Wheel evils. The Vanishing Wheel evils. The Vanishing Wheel evils. After another 2 epochs of battle experience, he had perfected the Vanishing Wheel evils. Combined with his Source Sea attack, the power was simply terrifying. Almost 5 epochs. Now, Lin Feng's perfect Source Sea was dozens of times larger than when he had first entered it. It had already surpassed the limits of an ordinary peak Yuan Venerate. Although it was still a little lacking compared to a 100-fold perfect Source Soul, it had already reached its limit. The perfect Source Sea still had a huge upper limit. The 4-eyed sea dragons seemed to be getting fewer and fewer, and their attacks are becoming more and more subtle. Something seems to be changing. Lin Feng sensed the changes in the 4-eyed sea dragons. They seem to have become smarter, especially in the recent epoch. They rarely appeared alone. Every time they attacked, many 4-eyed sea dragons would appear together. If he hadn't mastered the Vanishing Wheel evils, it would have been very difficult to kill them. They're here again. Sure enough, Lin Feng frowned as he looked at the majestic sea dragon waves in the distance. The 4-eyed sea dragon in the lead was the longest one he had encountered so far. It was more than 100,000 meters long. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2852. How strong was a 100,000-meter long 4-eyed sea dragon? Lin Feng had never fought against one before, nor had he seen one before. However, the longest 4-eyed sea dragon that he had killed before was 25,000 meters long. That battle had been evenly matched, and Lin Feng had only barely won after exhausting all of his strength. Lin Feng knew that he wouldn't be able to take down the 100,000-meter long 4-eyed sea dragon without a fundamental breakthrough. Lin Feng immediately retreated as there was no need to waste his strength fighting. After all, there was more than one 4-eyed sea dragon surrounding him. He might not even have a chance to escape if he got caught in a tough battle. The Eternal Ocean was the territory of the 4-eyed sea dragon, so it was best to be careful. Lin Feng still had an advantage. His constitution was much stronger than the 4-eyed sea dragon's. He could advance and retreat freely as long as he kept some distance. This is the advantage of a mental cultivator. A mental cultivator can engage in close combat against a Yuan Venerate with one thought. A mental cultivator can also engage in long-range attacks and Source Spirit attacks against close combat powerhouses, using one's strength to attack the enemy's weakness. I hope the 100,000-meter long 4-eyed sea dragon is the strongest one. Lin Feng felt that he could see the edge of his perfect Origin Sea. If everything went smoothly, he could raise his perfect Origin Sea to its limit. Combined with the strongest of the four evils of annihilation, the Great Wheel Evils, Lin Feng was confident that he could fight against the 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon. However, he would be in big trouble if the 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon wasn't the strongest. We'll talk about this later. Let's find a lone four-eyed sea dragon first. Lin Feng continued to search the eternal ocean. Although it had become increasingly difficult to catch a lone four-eyed sea dragon in the past era, there would still be some gains as long as he persevered. Furthermore, Lin Feng didn't have to catch a lone four-eyed sea dragon. As long as it wasn't a 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon, he could put up a fight. However, this was all just a hypothesis. The four-eyed sea dragon is rather intelligent. Although he was very careful, the four-eyed sea dragon race had already discovered that the four-eyed sea dragons near the surface of the sea were in groups. Could a group of more than 10 four-eyed sea dragons and a few of them at the front be 30,000 meters long? The difficulty was no less than fighting against the 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon. This was also normal. The four-eyed sea dragons and the Garuda birds have been fighting for countless eras. How could they not have intelligence? His arrival had obviously attracted the attention of the four-eyed sea dragons. While they were defending themselves, they were probably searching for him all over the sea. They might even ambush him. Difficulty: high. Time limit: 1,000 eras. A mission given by the Wheelmaster would naturally not be easy. Let's take a look again. Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry to come to a conclusion. He hadn't even been in the eternal ocean for 10 eras, and he hadn't even passed 1% of the time limit. He still had plenty of time to squander. 1 year passed, and then another. Lin Feng roamed around the eternal ocean cautiously. Good things don't come true, but bad things do. His guess was right. After seeing the first 100,000-meter four-eyed sea dragon, there would always be a 100,000-meter four-eyed sea dragon in the group of four-eyed sea dragons. After an entire epoch, not a single four-eyed sea dragon was seen. The defenses were extremely tight. Just relying on the eternal ocean's energy to strengthen and expand the origin sea is very inefficient. Lin Feng had tried before, but the eternal ocean was mostly used to replenish the origin sea's energy. It wasn't impossible to forcefully expand the origin sea. After all, there was still plenty of time. But if he wanted to complete the mission within the time limit, he might fail. Because 100,000-meter four-eyed sea dragons definitely aren't the strongest. This was Lin Feng's conclusion. During this epoch, he had encountered more than 10 100,000-meter four-eyed sea dragons. He estimated that there were more than 100 of them. Even if some of them were duplicates, there were still many of them. With so many of them, it was naturally impossible for them to be the strongest of the four-eyed sea dragons. I'll leave for a while. Even if I cultivate here, it's still too dangerous. During this epoch, Lin Feng had encountered many dangers. The four-eyed sea dragons were very united and very patient in their pursuit. Most importantly, this was their territory. During the most dangerous encounter, Lin Feng had nearly been ambushed and killed. However, Lin Feng had always been very careful and hadn't ventured too deep into the eternal ocean. The four-eyed sea dragons also had a weakness, and that was that they relied heavily on the eternal ocean. Once they left the surface of the ocean, they wouldn't be able to display even 10% of their strength. That was why they had become food for the Garuda birds. Lin Feng broke through the surface of the ocean and floated in the air. The feeling of energy instantly changed, changing from perfect origin soul power to perfect origin heart power. The two types of energy were completely different, and together they formed this world. I'll cultivate here. Pieces of black crystals appeared in Lin Feng's hand, and he refined them. The abundant energy opened up his perfect origin sea. Although the effect wasn't as good as a dragon soul, there were many of them. Moreover, the black crystals contained a unique energy that seeped into his perfect origin sea as he refined them. Black Crystal Mountain. Lin Feng had obtained a treasure from the Black Castle. Along with the Black Crystal Mountain, he had also obtained a secret mental cultivation technique hidden within the Black Crystal Mountain. The Black Crystal Mountain secret technique. A mysterious mental cultivation technique. Although he didn't know how effective it was, Lin Feng believed that it was most likely created by the 100 million wheels master. There had to be a reason for everything. A mental cultivation technique created by the 100 million wheels master naturally wouldn't be weak. The mental cultivation technique couldn't be cultivated in the eternal ocean because the ocean didn't have perfect origin heart power. I hope that the Black Crystal Mountain secret technique can give me a pleasant surprise. Lin Feng could very well create an Origin Sea attack technique in the Eternal Ocean and increase the power of the Origin Sea attack. However, after fighting with the Four-Eyed Sea Dragon for several eras, Lin Feng clearly knew that the Four-Eyed Sea Dragon had a certain degree of immunity against any form of attack from the Origin Sea. This was because they were born from the Eternal Ocean. 1 minute long, 1 minute short. The Four-Eyed Sea Dragon was very afraid of any form of attack from perfect Origin Heart power. This was especially true for direct attacks from perfect Origin Heart power, which could unleash several times more destructive power. Therefore, Lin Feng chose to cultivate the Black Crystal Mountain secret technique. His intuition told him that once he successfully cultivated the Black Crystal Mountain secret technique, he would be able to return to the Eternal Ocean with unstoppable force. Moreover, leaving the Eternal Ocean for a while could also confuse the Four-Eyed Sea Dragon clan. They wouldn't be able to find him for a period of time, and their defenses would naturally relax. By then, their attacks would be twice as effective. The Black Crystal Mountain secret technique. Lin Feng split a part of his consciousness to refine the black crystals, while the rest was to comprehend the Black Crystal Mountain secret technique. Although this secret technique was already in his mind, it was very complicated and abstruse. Comprehending it wasn't easy. To put it bluntly, this was the most abstruse secret technique Lin Feng had ever encountered. There was no other. A universe dominator level secret technique, and it's a mental cultivation technique. Lin Feng had never come into contact with such a technique before. It was like a toddler learning how to speak and suddenly learning the most complicated language of the universe. The difficulty could be imagined. However, Lin Feng wasn't worried. This time, he had enough time. I'll slowly comprehend it. Lin Feng was just about to start cultivating when his heart suddenly trembled. He helplessly revealed a bitter smile. No way, right? Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2853. Screech. Screech. That was a sharp and tyrannical screech, as if the overlord of the sky was declaring its sovereignty. The surrounding space seemed to tremble along with the screech, shattering like a mirror. A huge creature with a human face and a bird's body glided over with black wings. Its body was shockingly huge. Garuda bird. Lin Feng had seen the Garuda bird in the 100 million wheel realm through the light of the eternal sea. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it could fight 100 alone. The Garuda bird that lived in the sky could cover the sky when it spread its wings. Its black feathers were like sharp blades, emitting a cold black light. This Garuda bird was 100,000 meters long, even bigger than the 100,000-meter long Four-Eyed Sea Dragon from before. Although they were both 100,000 meters long, the Four-Eyed Sea Dragon was skinnier, while the Garuda bird was fatter. Especially when it spread its wings. It was more than 10 times bigger than the Four-Eyed Sea Dragon. Screech. The Garuda bird's eyes were filled with radiance as its screech pierced through the ears. Willpower attack. If the cultivator's willpower wasn't firm enough, Shan Mingsheng would have been injured. Clang. Lin Feng used the City of Will to protect it. The phantom spider hand turned into a black fluorescent light, as if thousands of black spiders were attacking at the same time. Countless spider hands turned into black flashes, and phantoms appeared as they pierced towards the Garuda bird. Pung, pung, pung. They clashed head-on. Lin Feng naturally wouldn't give the Garuda bird a chance to get close. This strange bird's attack power was terrifying. Even if he didn't try, he knew that once it got close, the Four-Eyed Sea Dragon would be slaughtered. Its beak could directly bite the Four-Eyed Sea Dragon to pieces, and its huge wings were like countless sharp blades. Its monstrous strength was boundless. Moreover, the Garuda bird was extremely fast in the sky, and there was no way to dodge. Its defense isn't strong. Lin Feng was surprised. This was the first time he fought with the Garuda bird, and it was a 100,000 meters long Garuda bird. He thought it would be a fierce battle, but the Garuda bird's strength seemed to be weaker than expected. The Phantom Spider Hand's strongest attack actually blocked the Garuda bird. Is it because my control attack power increased? Or is the Garuda bird actually not that strong? Lin Feng had some doubts, but he didn't think too much about it. The most important thing now was to defeat this Garuda bird. The attack power of 1,000 spiders, 10,000 shadows was not bad. After all, it was the strongest attack of the ultimate chaos treasure. Moreover, Lin Feng's perfect origin spirit and his control over it were much stronger than before. After a fierce battle, the Garuda bird, which was 100,000 meters tall, was unable to gain an advantage. Although its huge body was astonishingly fast, it couldn't bypass Lin Feng's Phantom Spider Hands and attack Lin Feng directly. Its strongest willpower attack couldn't even disturb Lin Feng. The Garuda bird was unable to unleash its full strength. Great Wheel Fiend. Lin Feng quickly executed his strongest Origin Sea attack. Beneath his feet was the Eternal Sea. Lin Feng wasn't worried about his Origin Sea's energy consumption. Even if he couldn't defeat his opponent, he could immediately escape into the sea. Once his Origin Sea's energy was exhausted, he could replenish it once he entered the Eternal Sea. Bang! The Garuda bird let out an ear-piercing shriek again. Lin Feng's Origin Sea attack was like a dagger that stabbed deeply into the Garuda bird. Although it wasn't a vital point, the absolute power of the Origin Sea attack still killed the Garuda bird. It's not that I'm strong. It's just that it's a little weak. Lin Feng had a rough idea of the Garuda bird's strength. He had a preconceived notion that 100,000 meters was very strong. However, that was for the four-eyed sea dragon. To the Garuda bird, that was just an ordinary level. This was because the Garuda bird was born with a huge body. A 100,000 meters tall Garuda bird's strength is equivalent to a 10,000 meters tall four-eyed sea dragon. Lin Feng obtained the energy source from the Garuda bird's body, a jade-like heart, the Garuda heart. Perfect origin heart force. Lin Feng refined the Garuda heart, and the universe in his body expanded, allowing him to contain even more perfect origin heart force. This is a little troublesome. Lin Feng entered the Eternal Ocean and instantly replenished his Origin Sea's energy before floating to the surface. The current situation was like this. He would be pursued by the four-eyed sea dragon if he entered the Eternal Ocean, but he would be attacked by the Garuda bird if he left the Eternal Ocean. Both races were very xenophobic and would attack him directly upon seeing him. In comparison, the Garuda bird race might be slightly friendlier. This was because he hadn't deliberately killed the Garuda bird. I can't kill the Garuda bird. Lin Feng somewhat understood the rules of the eternal world. If he deliberately killed the Garuda bird in order to obtain the Garuda heart, he would offend the overlords of the skies. Then, it would be difficult for him to advance. Speaking of which, he didn't have a safe place to stay. But at least in the skies, the Garuda bird race wouldn't pursue him like the four-eyed sea dragon race. Follow the original plan. Lin Feng thought for a moment and decided to follow the original plan. After all, his main target was the four-eyed sea dragon race. Now that he had offended the four-eyed sea dragon race, there was no turning back. In the skies, the Garuda bird race's nest might have an eternal pearl. Lin Feng raised his head and looked towards the endless skies. Now, he somewhat understood. However, since he had already embarked on this path, he would fight the four-eyed sea dragon race to the end. I'll try to stay close to the surface of the sea. If anything goes wrong, I can immediately hide in the eternal ocean. After fighting with the Garuda bird, Lin Feng knew its characteristics. In the skies, he wouldn't be able to contend against it. In the eternal ocean, he could rely on his speed to shake off the four-eyed sea dragon race that was stronger than him. But in the skies, could he shake off the Garuda bird? Their speed was too fast. My cultivation speed is going to slow down. Lin Feng had no choice. There was danger everywhere. He could only take it one step at a time. Fortunately, the Garuda bird population was small, and the chances of encountering them were small. However, Every time his cultivation was interrupted, it would be uncomfortable. No wonder there's a time limit of 1,000 years. During these 1,000 years, he had to take it one step at a time and find a breakthrough in his cultivation. It was very difficult for him to contend against an intelligent race alone. Lin Feng now understood what high difficulty meant. Was there a shortcut? Perhaps there was, but at least he hadn't found it yet. The Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique. Lin Feng began a long road of cultivation and comprehension. He was completely at a loss for what to do with this abstruse secret technique. There was no other path to take. He could only forcefully comprehend it over and over again. After reading a book 100 times, its meaning would be revealed. Lin Feng had only gained a tiny bit of understanding of the secret technique after comprehending it billions of times. Forcefully comprehending, it was very demanding on the cultivator. The Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique is closely related to the black crystals. As he refined more and more black crystals, Lin Feng felt that his path of comprehension had become smoother. Moreover, the black crystals in the origin sea contain a unique energy that was connected to the secret technique by an invisible thread. 10 eras, 100 eras. This was the most difficult secret technique that Lin Feng had ever comprehended. He had already completely refined the black crystals. Even after killing countless Garuda birds, Lin Feng had only comprehended a small success. However, this small success was already very terrifying. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2854. Lin Feng returned to the eternal ocean. The unfamiliar, yet familiar eternal ocean. Although he would often enter it to replenish his origin sea's energy, this was the first time in 100 eras that he had returned. After 100 eras, the eternal ocean returned to normal, as though nothing had happened. Lin Feng soon saw a carefree four-eyed sea dragon swimming about. Who would have thought of this before? At that time, the four-eyed sea dragons were in a state of battle readiness. Let alone the 10,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon. They couldn't even see the smallest 1,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon. Lin Feng raised his hand and used the phantom arachnid hand. He effortlessly killed the happily swimming four-eyed sea dragon and obtained the dragon soul that he hadn't obtained for a long time. He instantly refined it, and his perfect origin sea expanded. It's been a long time. Lin Feng had been cultivating the secret technique of the Black Crystal Mountain, and there was no origin sea energy in the air. After the Black Crystal Mountain was used up, Lin Feng's perfect origin sea stopped advancing. The enormous perfect origin sea was like an expert in the prime of his life. There was a huge possibility of improvement. Let's collect some interest first. Lin Feng soon found another free four-eyed sea dragon. The eternal ocean was their territory, and the four-eyed sea dragons didn't need to worry about anything else. Even the Garuda bird could only go 100,000 meters into the eternal ocean at most. It didn't dare to go any deeper. The deeper they went, the greater the pressure of the eternal ocean, and the Garuda bird couldn't replenish its energy in the eternal ocean. They were indeed stronger than the four-eyed sea dragons, but there were fewer of them. After countless eras of battle, they could only fight evenly with the four-eyed sea dragons, unable to wipe them out. Of course, the four-eyed sea dragons couldn't do it either. But Lin Feng was different. In the eternal ocean, Lin Feng was like a fish in water, happy and content. He wasn't any weaker than the four-eyed sea dragons. This was the reason why Lin Feng had chosen to enter the eternal ocean. Let's take advantage of the fact that the four-eyed sea dragons haven't reacted yet. Lin Feng quickly went deep into the eternal ocean. He was now much stronger than when he had first entered. His perfect origin sea's expansion had increased the depth of his depth by more than 10 times. The wolf was here again, at the bottom of the eternal ocean. Bright pearls, corals, and precious stones were piled up. It was an extremely beautiful coral palace. The vibrant green colors dazzled the eyes. In front of the palace, there was a huge statue, the statue of the Million-Wheel Lord. He looked exactly the same as the one Lin Feng had seen on the second level of the arcane realm, except for his mannerisms and movements. Cultivators have appeared again. The crowned four-eyed sea dragon emperor had 18 four-eyed sea dragon kings under his command. Every one of them was valiant and skilled in battle. Their bodies were 1,000,000 meters long, and they were scattered throughout the eternal ocean. How vast was the eternal ocean? Previously, Lin Feng had turned the world upside down in the eternal ocean, but he had only been in a corner of the eternal ocean's 18 sea regions. He hadn't even seen the four-eyed sea dragon king, much less the four-eyed sea dragon emperor, who held the greatest authority in the entire four-eyed sea dragon clan. The four-eyed sea dragon emperor did not need to take care of the tribe's affairs. He had already handed it over to the 18 four-eyed sea dragon kings. Every sea region was stable, and there were no major issues. But cultivators were different. This was an order from the eternal god. The four-eyed sea dragon emperor had to take care of it personally. Ao Chung, is he still in your sea region? Although the four-eyed sea dragon emperor was a bit old, he was still in good spirits. Yes, Dragon Emperor, Ao Chung replied. The four-eyed sea dragon emperor nodded and said thoughtfully, he hasn't appeared for 100 years. He must have grasped some abilities. Ao Qian, Ao Ing. Present. Ao Qian and Ao Ing stepped forward. Assist Ao Chung in killing the cultivators, the four-eyed sea dragon emperor ordered. Yes, Dragon Emperor. Pung, pung, pung. One four-eyed sea dragon after another was killed. The phantom spider arm in Lin Feng's hand flashed with light. It was demonic and powerful. The 100 years of cultivation hadn't been for nothing. Lin Feng had made great progress in all aspects of the soul origin source sea. A 10,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon could be killed by the phantom spider arm alone. The four-eyed sea dragon race wasn't known for their physical defense. The Garuda bird's strength would be weakened in the eternal ocean, and it wouldn't be able to display its most outstanding speed advantage. However, Lin Feng wouldn't be affected in the eternal ocean. His phantom spider arm could also display its greatest power, and it would only be stronger. However, the 10,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon and the 100-years sea dragon posed no threat to Lin Feng. Now, it was just a different way of killing them. Their reaction this time is much faster than last time. Lin Feng smiled. Last time, he had wreaked havoc in the eternal ocean for a long time before the four-eyed sea dragon race had reacted. This time, he had only killed 100 or so before the four-eyed sea dragon race reacted and went on alert again. There aren't any four-eyed sea dragons left alone again. Lin Feng quickly refined and absorbed the dragon souls. Lin Feng naturally hoped that these beautiful days would last longer. However, this wasn't something he could control. The four-eyed sea dragon race wasn't stupid. After suffering a loss once, their second reaction would be much faster than the first. Soon, a 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon would lead other four-eyed sea dragons to appear everywhere and begin a large-scale hunt. Lin Feng was already very familiar with the four-eyed sea dragon race's routine. However, when he returned this time, he was naturally fully prepared. He was patiently searching. It's here. Lin Feng didn't have to wait for too long. A few years later, he encountered a 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon again. Although they were both 100,000 meter long, the four-eyed sea dragon was much stronger than the Garuda bird. Back then, Lin Feng had retreated from the eternal ocean because he wasn't a match for the 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon. Hua, hua la la. The seawater surged as the 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon roared as it charged over. This was its territory, and the entire sea region was hunting down cultivators. Now that it had encountered one, it would be a great merit if it could kill one. Its two eyes flickered as it controlled the seawater to form a tornado that attacked Lin Feng. Regardless of its abilities, the 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon was the strongest opponent Lin Feng had ever encountered. Just the destructive power of the tornado alone was shocking. However, the current Lin Feng couldn't be compared to 100 years ago. Thousand spider shadows. Lin Feng's movements were concise and direct. He had fought the Garuda bird the same way 100 years ago. Facing the 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon, he didn't use his strongest origin sea attack, but a controlled attack. But this time, the controlled attack was completely different from before. The Origin Soul contained a special kind of energy that seemed to be crystallized. A pitch-black light flickered on the black spider arms, causing them to come to life. The spider arms came to life one after another and broke through the tornado, sweeping everything in its path. It was as if an army had suddenly gained a backbone and had an invincible commander-in-chief to lead them. Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique. Lin Feng used his greatest harvest in the past 100 eras for the first time. He had comprehended a super-secret technique to the small success stage. Chapter 2855. The strength of the heart cultivation secret art lay in the assimilation and fusion of the perfect source heart force, which allowed it to erupt with power that origin energy and soul force didn't have. It allowed the power of 1 + 1 to exceed 2, 10, or even 100. The crystallization of the perfect source heart force greatly increased the attack power. The 10,000 spider shadows burst forth with a power that was dozens of times stronger than before. The spider hands pierced through the water spouts and went straight for the four-eyed sea dragon. Layers upon layers of phantoms, the attack power was unstoppable. Even the water spouts were penetrated and shattered. Chi! Chi! The black crystallized heart cultivation secret art landed solidly on the four-eyed sea dragon's body. The four-eyed sea dragon was in a miserable state, its huge body twisting in pain. The Black Crystal Mountain secret art was originally very strong. Moreover, the perfect source heart force had an explosive effect on the four-eyed sea dragon. Even the four-eyed sea dragon couldn't withstand it, because the current Lin Feng was very strong. Boom, boom, boom. The black spider hands and the Black Crystal Mountain secret art combined perfectly and were unstoppable. Lin Feng's attacks were clean and neat. The four-eyed sea dragon was entangled by the thousands of black spiders, and its aura gradually weakened. Soon, it couldn't struggle and died. While the 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon was struggling, Lin Feng had already killed the other four-eyed sea dragons. Too weak. Compared to the four-eyed sea dragon, the other four-eyed sea dragons weren't even worth mentioning. What a powerful dragon soul! Lin Feng was pleasantly surprised. The same dragon soul had a much different effect. This dragon soul of a 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon was dozens of times more effective in developing a perfect origin sea than a 10,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon. He couldn't absorb and refine it all at once. Good. Lin Feng was overjoyed by the rapid development of his perfect origin sea. It was as if he was climbing a tall mountain. Previously, he had been stuck at the mountainside for 100 eras, unable to move an inch forward, but now he was rapidly ascending. Continue. After tasting the sweetness, Lin Feng didn't stop. Taking advantage of the fact that the four-eyed sea dragon hadn't reacted yet, he quickly hunted down the other four-eyed sea dragons. If it was the same as when he was hunted, then he should be able to find four-eyed sea dragons everywhere. Chi! Chi! The phantom arachnid hand displayed its might, and the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique was invincible. One after another, the 100,000-meter-long four-eyed sea dragons were killed, and their top-grade dragon souls were absorbed. Lin Feng's perfect source sea expanded at an astonishing speed. Screech! The perfect origin sea had reached its limit. Even though Lin Feng's upper limit was very high, the dragon soul's effect was too powerful. In addition, he had absorbed and refined all the black crystals in the entire Black Crystal Mountain. More than half of his perfect source sea had already been developed. However, Lin Feng's hunting did not stop. The perfect source sea had indeed reached its limit. However, this was the limit of Huang Zun's level and not the limit of a Yuan Venerate. Right now, he was only a peak Huang Zun. As long as he broke through to the ultimate God Venerate, the upper limits of his source soul and source sea would increase again. At that time, he could directly absorb the dragon soul and continue to expand. So why not? Moreover, Lin Feng couldn't stop now. Firstly, the four-eyed sea dragon race wouldn't give up on hunting him down. Secondly, this was a mission in itself. He had to obtain the Eternal Pearl within the time limit of 1,000 eras. Sea Dragon King Palace. Every sea region had a Sea Dragon King Palace that was overseen by a four-eyed Sea Dragon King. Apart from the four-eyed Sea Dragon Emperor, the four-eyed Sea Dragon King had the greatest authority in each sea region. He killed many generals. Ao Chung looked displeased. The generals that had died were all under his command, which made him panic. His strength has increased a lot compared to 100 years ago. Ao Chung commented. Let the other generals retreat. There is no need to suffer any more casualties. Ao Ing said decisively. Although these generals weren't under his command, the four-eyed sea dragon race was very united. Ao Ing also felt uncomfortable seeing his tribesmen being killed. Ao Chung nodded. I will deal with him personally. Don't screw up. Ao Chung chuckled. Ao Chung raised his head slightly and slapped the water with his slender dragon tail. How capable can a mere cultivator be? How can his strength have changed so much in just 100 years? 30% of my strength is more than enough to deal with him. Then I'll wait for Brother Cheng's good news. Like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, not a single armor was left. Lin Feng was already a god in the eternal ocean. There were only 18 four-eyed sea dragons that were 1 million meters long. The 18 sea dragon kings guarded the various sea regions. The main battle strength of the four-eyed sea dragons was 100,000 meters long. Moreover, the transformation from 100,000 meters to 1 million meters was a direct process. If the transformation failed, they would die. If the transformation succeeded, they would become 1 million meters long and become a four-eyed sea dragon king. Therefore, when the 100,000-meter four-eyed sea dragon was no match for Lin Feng had few opponents in the eternal ocean. His perfect origin sea had expanded to the limit, which made Lin Feng want to enter the depths of the eternal ocean. However, Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry. Only 1/10 of 1,000 years had passed. Lin Feng still didn't fully understand the four-eyed sea dragon race, especially their strength structure. He didn't know if there would be other dangers in the depths of the eternal ocean. It was better to be safe than sorry. After all, this was the four-eyed sea dragon race's territory. There's no harm in storing more dragon souls. The next time his internal universe upgraded, his perfect origin sea would expand again, and the upper limit would increase by at least 10 times. The more dragon souls, the better. Lin Feng hoped to have enough dragon souls so that he could reach his goal in one go next time. Chi, the phantom spider attacked. The group of four-eyed sea dragons, led by the 100,000-meter four-eyed sea dragon, panicked when they saw Lin Feng. They covered their heads and fled like rats. Unfortunately, Lin Feng wasn't a Garuda. The eternal ocean was no obstacle for Lin Feng. Moreover, the phantom spider-hand's attack speed was extremely fast, and its control was also very strong. The four-eyed sea dragon was unable to escape from Lin Feng's attack range, and the black spider hand tore through its weak scales, allowing Lin Feng to quickly kill it. It was effortless. Escape? Could he escape? Previously, Lin Feng could easily escape from the pursuit of the four-eyed sea dragon. Now, he could naturally catch up to the four-eyed sea dragon. Although this was their territory, the four-eyed sea dragon's physique was too weak. It couldn't be compared to the Garuda. Every dog had its day. Now, Lin Feng was flushed with success. He easily obtained the dragon souls and didn't have to worry about anything. However, Lin Feng knew that these good days would soon come to an end. If the four-eyed sea dragon fled when they saw him, it meant that they were planning something. They had a bigger revenge waiting for him. They're here. Lin Feng didn't have to wait for long. In the distance, a four-eyed sea dragon that was 1 million meters long and covered in golden scales was leading a group of four-eyed sea dragons that were 100,000 meters long in a mighty manner. Four-eyed Sea Dragon King, Ao Chung. Chapter 2856. Victory for the Dragon King. Victory for the Dragon King. The 100,000-meter tall, four-eyed sea dragon generals shouted in unison. Their huge bodies stirred up the waves of the eternal ocean. They were very confident in their king, Ao Chung, who was in charge of this sea region. Among the 18 four-eyed sea dragon kings, Ao Cheng's strength was ranked at the top. Dealing with a mere cultivator would be a piece of cake. Ao Cheng also thought so. Otherwise, he wouldn't have vowed in front of the other two sea dragon kings, Ao Qian and Ao Ing. This cultivator couldn't even deal with the sea dragon generals 100 years ago. How could he contend with him 100 years later? Too naive. It was just that his mental cultivation had improved and was able to restrain the sea dragon generals. Ao Chung didn't think that Lin Feng could pose any threat to him. That kind of controlling attack was useless against him. He was a super expert who had participated in several great battles of the Eternal Ocean. Many Garuda bird kings have died in my hands. A mere cultivator, 30% of my strength, is enough to take him down. Ao Chung looked at Lin Feng from afar with a proud expression. I will let you know the difference between a king and a general. Cultivator, don't even think about getting the eternal god's keepsake. Die. Ao Cheng's eyes lit up, and a waterspout appeared. The waterspouts used by the 100,000-meter-tall, four-eyed sea dragon generals were very different. When Ao Cheng made his move, the entire sea region seemed to have become his domain. Countless waterspouts attacked Lin Feng from all directions. Even the Eternal Ocean, where Lin Feng was instantly out of control. Absolute advantage. Once he made his move, it was clear whether he had it or not. Ao Cheng's golden scales were brimming with light, symbolizing his status and strength. The sea dragon generals behind him were envious. From 100,000-meter-tall four-eyed sea dragon generals to 1,000,000-meter-tall four-eyed sea dragon generals had significantly improved in all aspects, especially their weakest defense, which had been completely sublimated. That was a super strong defense that could withstand the Garuda bird's attack. Their king could definitely block that cultivator's controlling attack. In the eyes of the sea dragon generals, it was only a matter of time before Ao Chang killed that cultivator. The difference in strength couldn't be made up for by luck alone. Their king would definitely win. In the Eternal Ocean, no one could beat the four-eyed sea dragons. Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique. The isolated and helpless Lin Feng's expression did not change in the slightest. His fighting spirit was still at its peak. Facing Ao Cheng's frenzied attacks, Lin Feng countered with an attack. But this time, it wasn't the Phantom Spider Hand, but something that hadn't been used for 100 years. Origin Sea Attack. Lin Feng's strongest trump card. It was the same Origin Sea Attack, the same 5th level of Starfall, but the power was completely different. The Phantom Arachnid Hand combined with the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique would increase its power by more than 10 times. Origin Sea attacks were already much stronger than physical attacks. So how strong would it be if it was combined with the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique? Hongluan Sha, the supreme treasure of the chaos and the strongest impact of the Origin Sea perfectly matched the City of Will. The entire city seemed to be made of black crystals, and it was unstoppable as it smashed into the depths of Ao Cheng's dragon soul. Boom! Rumble! How shocking was its power! Ao Cheng's dragon soul was the ultimate soul defense treasure, and this was the Eternal Sea, the place where they had been nurtured. No matter how badly their dragon souls were injured, they would recover quickly. Using an Origin Sea attack to deal with a 1,000,000-meter four-eyed sea dragon seemed stupid. But only seemed stupid. Lin Feng's Origin Sea attack was no longer the attack method of one thought Huang Zun, but the attack method of a mind cultivator. Using perfect Origin Heart Force as the source and the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique as the blade, he stabbed at Ao Cheng's dragon soul. It was simple and direct, but it was extremely lethal. How can his dragon soul be stronger than mine? Impossible. Ao Cheng's expression changed drastically. The moment the Origin Sea attack clashed, he would know the strength of his opponent. Although his opponent's Origin soul wasn't stronger than his, it had the same Origin Heart Force attack as the Garuda bird. The Origin Sea attack's power was terrifying. The most terrifying thing was that the power of the Origin Sea was mixed with the energy of the tiny black crystals. It was like a natural nemesis, and it directly disintegrated his dragon soul's energy. It crazily tore and strangled. No, no. Ao Chang was already thinking of retreating. He felt like a mouse seeing a cat. No matter what, he couldn't win against this cultivator. The energy of the black crystals burned his dragon's soul and skin. No matter how strong his defenses were, he couldn't defend against it. It was hard to imagine that a cultivator who couldn't even defeat a sea dragon general 100 years ago could improve so quickly in just 100 years. Ao Chung was completely dumbfounded. He tried his best to defend, but it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. He couldn't stop the other party's attack at all. Even if this was his territory, it was useless because the other party was using the Origin Sea attack. The geographical advantage was almost completely eliminated. Whoosh, 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 the waterspout continued to wreak havoc, but it couldn't get close to Lin Feng. Lin Feng stood tall in the vacuum of the sea. The 1 million-meter four-eyed sea dragon king's aura weakened and then disappeared. The waterspout around him calmed down, no longer rippling. Ao Chung defeated. The result of defeat was death. The four-eyed sea dragon generals behind him were all dumbfounded. They stared with wide eyes as the waterspout disappeared. They looked at the unremarkable cultivator in front of them. He actually killed Lord Ao Chung. Illusion? This must be an illusion. How could this happen? How could a cultivator be so strong? Moreover, how did their king die? It wasn't killed by an attack, but by the annihilation of the dragon soul's consciousness. What kind of concept was this? The dragon soul was the strongest symbol of the four-eyed sea dragon race. It was an innate ability that they were proud of. Moreover, the battle took place in the eternal ocean, so they had the advantage. No matter how long they fought, the four-eyed sea dragon's strength wouldn't be exhausted. It was even more impossible to kill them in the eternal ocean, especially in the depths of the eternal ocean. For countless eras, even the powerful Garuda bird race couldn't do it. But today, a cultivator had killed the four-eyed sea dragon king without suffering any damage. Whoosh, while the four-eyed sea dragon generals were still in a daze. Lin Feng's Origin Sea had already recovered its energy. Killing Ao Chung had consumed a considerable amount of his energy. If the sea dragon generals launched a sneak attack now, Lin Feng would be in a difficult situation. After all, the space they were in was a vacuum. There was no eternal ocean water. Ao Chung had sucked it all dry. However, it was only a sorry state. Today, the four-eyed sea dragon generals couldn't kill Lin Feng because they were too weak. Boom, boom, boom. The phantom spider hands appeared again. The pitch-black spiders were like phantoms as they swept through the four-eyed sea dragon generals. Lin Feng wouldn't show mercy. Being kind to the enemy was being cruel to oneself. Back then, he had been chased by these 100,000-meter four-eyed sea dragons. Moreover, these were all top-grade dragon souls. How could he miss them? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version update website. Chapter 2857. Ao Chung is dead. Ao Qian and Ao Ying were stunned. They had been ordered by the Sea Dragon Emperor to assist Ao Chung, but now that Ao Chung was dead, they were at a loss. Should they return to report to the Sea Dragon Emperor or avenge Ao Chung? How could Ao Chung die? Ao Qian and Ao Ying did not even think about it. In their minds, this was simply impossible. Yet it had happened. What do we do? Ao Qian was at a loss. Kill him before he can stabilize his footing and avenge Ao Chung. Ao Ying's dragon eyes were fierce. He just killed Ao Chung. No matter how he killed him, he must be exhausted or injured. If you and I work together, we are much stronger than Ao Chung. We can fight. Ao Qian pursed his lips, already at a loss. He gritted his teeth. Then we'll listen to you. Let's go. Ao Ying was very decisive and did not hesitate at all. They naturally knew where Ao Chung and the cultivator were fighting, and the eternal ocean was their territory. They had spies everywhere and could communicate with the other four-eyed sea dragon generals. It was easy to know the cultivator's location. To think that they, the four-eyed sea dragon clan, had a dragon king killed in their own territory. If this spread out, wouldn't they be laughing their heads off? If they ran away in fear? Ao Ying did not dare imagine how they would face the Sea Dragon Emperor in the future. Ao Ying was very confident in his own strength. He was much stronger than Ao Chung, and working together with Ao Qian, his strength was even more explosive. They could definitely kill that cultivator. Thousand Spiders' Shadows. Facing the dozens of four-eyed sea dragon generals, Lin Feng happily harvested their heads. The black spider's hands turned into illusions, stacking layers upon layers of shadows. Whichever sea dragon generals landed on, they would be crushed into pieces. Their weak defenses could not withstand a single blow. The four-eyed sea dragon generals did not have the golden scales of the sea dragon king. If Lin Feng's thousand spiders' shadows attacked Ao Cheng, they would not be able to break through his defenses. Dragon soul, dragon soul, dragon soul. Lin Feng harvested and scathed, already surpassing gods. These 100,000-meter four-eyed sea dragons that had chased him everywhere were now like fish on a chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. But strangely, even though they were completely defeated, these four-eyed sea dragon generals still stubbornly resisted, determined not to escape. It was a little strange. He seems to be stalling for time. How could Lin Feng not know the nature of the four-eyed sea dragon? It wasn't as if he hadn't run before. He had battled with the Garuda for many years and had always enjoyed running. Now, he was trembling in fear, and his dragon eyes were filled with terror. At the same time, he was unafraid of death. One look and Lin Feng could tell that something was wrong. However, Lin Feng appreciated the four-eyed sea dragon's attitude. This kind of sacrifice was hard to come by, especially when they were afraid, but they still did it. What was the point of stalling for time? There's an even stronger four-eyed sea dragon. Lin Feng had already begun to recover his perfect source heart force. In the eternal ocean, perfect source heart force was easy to recover, but perfect source heart force could not be recovered, especially when using the Black Crystal Mountain secret technique, which consumed a lot of perfect source heart force. A portion of power, a portion of consumption. Lin Feng had an enormous amount of perfect core force. It must be understood that he had battled against the Garuda birds for a full 100 eras. Although it had been a self-defense counterattack, it had been a very long time, and he had harvested quite a few Garuda hearts. Every Garuda's heart was no less effective than a dragon's soul. Lin Feng was very much looking forward to it. Since he had come, he had no intention of leaving. He would encounter the even stronger four-eyed sea dragons sooner or later. It was better to encounter them sooner rather than later. Moreover, Lin Feng was very confident in his current strength. It all depended on what other trump cards the four-eyed sea dragon had that they had yet to use. He did not have to wait for too long. Stalling for time meant that it would be very soon. Otherwise, if all these four-eyed sea dragon generals who were stalling for time died and Lin Feng left, wouldn't the four-eyed sea dragon race suffer a double loss? Their battle formation was extremely vast. Ao Shui and Ao Ying had arrived. The two four-eyed sea dragon kings were exactly the same as Ao Cheng. They were 1,000,000 meters long, and they blotted out the sky. Their golden scales shone brightly, revealing a tough defense. Their enormous aura was enough to cause the eternal ocean to howl, and they charged straight at Lin Feng. Their arrival instantly gave the remaining four-eyed sea dragon generals a pillar of support, causing them to cry out in joy. One of them is even stronger than the sea dragon king from before. Lin Feng's mental cultivation level was extremely high, and his senses were very precise. The two four-eyed sea dragon kings were not weak, especially the one on the right, who was very fierce. Ao Shui and Ao Ying, 2 against 1. They had the advantage. Great Wheel Fiend. Lin Feng was not careless. He immediately used Origin's Sea Charge, and the Black Gold Mountain secret art once again showed its might. The black crystal fused within, and he chose the stronger of the two. Different personalities, different fighting spirits. Clearly, Ao Ying's fighting spirit was more resolute and decisive, and she was stronger. Ao Shui was slightly weaker, and he had been hesitating between advancing and retreating. If Lin Feng had attacked Ao Shui first, Ao Ying would have caused a lot of trouble for Lin Feng. But attacking Ao Ying first was different. Although Ao Shui had come with Ao Ying to kill Lin Feng, he had not made up his mind. No matter what, he was not even as strong as Ao Cheng. The choice of attack was very important. Origin's Sea Charge could unleash great power in a one-on-one battle, but in a one-on-many battle, it would be very troublesome, even if it was only 1 against 2. But Lin Feng's decisive choice minimized the drawbacks. Attacking Ao Ying left Ao Shui at a loss for what to do. By the time he reacted, Ao Ying's aura had clearly weakened, and her giant dragon body trembled violently. Her golden scales were lifeless, and her dragon eyes were filled with disbelief. He was much stronger than Ao Chung, but he still could not block it. Ao Ying is also dead. Ao Shui had already launched an attack at Lin Feng. The arrow had left the bow and could no longer be retracted, but his heart was a mess. Ao Ying's death had completely stunned him, and he did not know what to do next. What happened to the cooperation? What happened to taking revenge for Ao Chung together? She died just like that? Boom! Ao Shui's attack did not cause any damage to Lin Feng. He quickly followed in Ao Ying's footsteps, killed by the same Origin Sea Charge. The black crystal flashed in the Origin Sea, like a giant black crystal mountain standing in the center of the Origin Sea, unstoppable. This was a mental cultivation secret art created by the 100 Million Wheels Lord. This was a super secret art that Lin Feng had spent a full 100 epochs to cultivate. If he could not even deal with a mere four-eyed Sea Dragon King, wouldn't he lose face as the 100 Million Wheels Lord? One had to know that the four-eyed Sea Dragon race was created by the 100 Million Wheels Lord. Lord Ao Ying is dead. Lord Ao Shui is also dead. This cultivator is too frightening. Run to the four-eyed Sea Dragon race. This was an unprecedented disaster. Even the Garuda bird's large-scale invasion had not caused such great damage to the four-eyed Sea Dragon King. This was because the Garuda bird's strength was greatly reduced upon entering the Eternal Sea. But this cultivator had killed 3 Sea Dragon Kings in a row. Extreme terror. This was the end of the four-eyed Sea Dragon race. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version update website. Chapter 2858. He had won. Lin Feng knew that he had really won this time. The 100,000-meter long four-eyed sea dragon wished it could grow 10 more legs so that it didn't have to waste any more time. Naturally, it ran as fast as it could and as far as it could. Even the 3 Sea Dragon Kings had been killed one by one. What were they? This cultivator was even more terrifying than the Garuda birds. The Garuda birds did not dare to go deep into the eternal ocean, but this cultivator was unscrupulous. It was as if this was not the four-eyed sea dragon's territory, but his territory. A few of them ran away. After all, Lin Feng was only one person. The Garuda birds had scattered in all directions. It was impossible to catch up to all of them. The Phantom Spider Hand's attacks could only lock onto a certain area at a time. Although he did not kill all of them, Lin Feng was already very satisfied. In addition to dozens of top-grade dragon souls, there were also 3 super dragon souls of the million-meter four-eyed sea dragons. Any one of the 3 super dragon souls was comparable to 100 top-grade dragon souls. He had collected all of them. Lin Feng did not need them now. Even if the super dragon souls contained powerful energy, Lin Feng's internal universe was limited. His perfect source C had been expanded to the limit and could not break through the wall. However, Lin Feng knew that it was only a matter of time before he became a godly venerable. When that time came, these top-grade dragon souls and super dragon souls would play a big role in strengthening his perfect source C. Let's return to the surface first to recover my perfect source heart force. Since the battle was over, Lin Feng did not waste the precious Hongmeng fruit. Anyway, he only needed to float to the surface to replenish his perfect source heart force. As for the large amount of source C energy consumed in the battle, it was completely saturated the moment the battle ended. At the bottom of the eternal ocean, the Beike Pearl Palace was grand and majestic. The magnificent Coral Palace was like the heart of the sea, emitting resplendent light. In the palace, the statue of the master of 100 million wheels was being worshipped by the Sea Dragon Kings respectfully. On a closer look, there is a crystal-clear and indescribable jade bead in the palm of the master of 100 million wheels giant statue. Its existence seemed to have completely frozen time and space, symbolizing perfection and eternity. The four-eyed sea dragon emperor with the crown on his head had a grave expression. Of the 18 sea dragon kings behind him, only 15 remained. The 3 sea dragon kings that he had sent out had all been killed by the cultivators. According to the surviving sea dragon generals, the cultivators first killed Ao Chung, and then even Ao Qian and Ao Ing were killed by the origin soul, using the four-eyed sea dragon's strongest ability to exterminate them. It only took 100 eras. Almighty Lord, the cultivator you've been waiting for has finally appeared. The four-eyed sea dragon emperor's voice was deep, and it carried a dragon's voice. The sea dragon kings behind him were all kneeling on the ground, and the scene was extremely spectacular. Dragon Emperor, do you want to try again? He was the strongest of the 18 sea dragon kings. Even when compared to the four-eyed sea dragon emperor, he wouldn't lose out to the sea dragon emperor. The four-eyed sea dragon emperor was also 1,000,000 meters long. This was already the limit of the four-eyed sea dragon's training. However, the four-eyed sea dragon emperor had inherited the throne of the four-eyed sea dragon clan, as well as the power of the eternal god, making him even more powerful. No need. Four-eyed sea dragon emperor immediately rejected. Even Ao Sheng. It will be very difficult to defeat Ao Qian and Ao Ing. The jade-eyed sea dragon king, Ao Sheng, agreed. The dragon emperor was right. Although he was stronger than the other sea dragon kings, they had all reached the limit of the four-eyed sea dragon. Their strength was limited. This cultivator has unlimited potential. In just 100 eras, he has already been reborn. After 1,000 eras, he will definitely be even more incredible. There's no need to compete with him. He already meets the requirements of the eternal god. We can give him the Pearl of Eternity. The four-eyed sea dragon emperor said in a deep voice. The other sea dragon kings agreed, and none of them objected. After killing 3 sea dragon kings, Lin Feng had already used his strength to completely subdue the four-eyed sea dragon clan. The boundless sea, the endless energy of the origin sea, the eternal sea was vast and majestic, like the miracle of the Hongmeng Sea. This sacred land had given birth to the powerful four-eyed sea dragon clan, but now it had been turned upside down by a human. Not even half a four-eyed sea dragon could be seen. These guys really know how to hide. Lin Feng was also speechless. After that battle, he did not even find a single four-eyed sea dragon. It was as if they had suddenly evaporated, and not even a single dragon hair could be seen. He had wanted to accumulate more dragon souls, but he did not expect the four-eyed sea dragons to be so crafty. It seems that 1,000,000 meters is their limit. Lin Feng already understood. If they still had the strength to take revenge, the four-eyed sea dragons would have already moved out in full force and chased after him like they did 100 years ago. There had been no movement for so long, and even those small four-eyed sea dragons had disappeared. This could only mean one thing. The four-eyed sea dragons had already exhausted all their abilities. They had already used all their trump cards, but they still could not hold on, so they might as well hide. You think I won't find you if you hide? When the enemy retreated, Lin Feng would advance. Seeing the four-eyed sea dragon show weakness, Lin Feng simply smiled and dived into the depths of the eternal sea. His goal had not changed, and that was the Pearl of Eternity. Once he obtained the Pearl of Eternity, he would be able to complete his mission. Shirwanli, 1,000,000 kilometers, 10,000,000 kilometers. Lin Feng continued to sink. The deeper he went, the stronger the pressure of the eternal sea, and the greater the pressure on the origin sea. 100 years ago, Lin Feng could not bear it, but now he could. However, with the current perfect origin sea, 10,000,000 kilometers was already close to its limit. But the eternal sea was still bottomless. Black Crystal Mountain. Lin Feng defended his perfect origin sea. A huge black crystal mountain stood tall, like an underwater volcano. Many black crystals were hidden within the perfect origin sea, resisting the pressure of the eternal sea. Instantly, the pressure appeared. The four-eyed sea dragons feared perfect origin force, and so did the eternal sea. This was the world of heart cultivators, a world created by the master of 100 million wheels. Perfect origin force was like a marshal, and it was naturally a level higher than perfect origin force. Therefore, the Garuda bird race was also a level higher than the four-eyed sea dragons. 30 million kilometers, 50 million kilometers, 70 million kilometers. Lin Feng gradually sank, and the feeling became clearer and clearer. It was as if there was an invisible force connected to him, making his heart palpitate. The deeper he went, the closer he got, the more intimate the feeling became. It was as if it had merged with his cells. Found it. After sinking for a full 90 million kilometers, Lin Feng finally saw the incomparably huge coral palace. It was several million meters tall, majestic, and incomparable. The call that made his heart tremble came from this coral palace. "I've been waiting for you for a long time, cultivator." A deep voice came from the palace. "Come in." As this voice sounded, the coral palace flickered with light. The water rippled, and a passage opened. Chapter 28:59. Blue waves of water flowed like fairies. Lin Feng smiled faintly and entered. Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. The moment he stepped into the palace, the aura around him changed. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he saw the majestic statue of the Wheelmaster. It was completely different from the statue he had seen on the second level of the secret realm. Compared to this statue, the one in front of him paled in comparison. The statue was millions of meters tall. The feeling of being summoned came from this statue. The master of 100 million wheels. Cultivator. The four-eyed sea dragon emperor was millions of meters long. The scales on his body were dark gold in color and seemed to be a grade higher than the golden scales. When he saw Lin Feng, his body shrunk and turned into human form. "I am the Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Hunan. You can call me Sea Dragon Emperor." The voice was deep and ancient. The one who spoke was the Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan. Sea Dragon Emperor. Lin Feng nodded and smiled kindly. Since the other party treated him with respect, Lin Feng would not meet him on the battlefield. Moreover, he could not meet him. Behind the four-eyed Sea Dragon Emperor, there were 15 million-meter-long four-eyed Sea Dragon Kings. If it was a one-on-one battle, Lin Feng was confident. If it was a one-on-one battle, Lin Feng could not think of any other way besides running away. However, these million-meter-long four-eyed sea dragons seemed to obey the Sea Dragon Emperor. "Are you here for the Pearl of Eternity?" Ao Wanwan went straight to the point. Yes. Lin Feng did not hide anything. His gaze landed on the statue of the master of 100 million wheels. When he entered, he saw the unique, resplendent jade pearl. It was most likely the Pearl of Eternity. "Go get it. You have met the conditions set by the Eternal God," the Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan said solemnly. Although the rules were set by the Eternal God, the cultivator in front of him had killed so many four-eyed sea dragons, including 3 sea dragon kings. As the Sea Dragon Emperor, Ao Wanwan naturally did not like Lin Feng. "I can get it directly?" Lin Feng was slightly surprised. He did not expect it to go so smoothly. Ao Wanwan nodded. "They won't stop you." Lin Feng nodded. "Once I get the Pearl of Eternity, how do I leave this place?" Ao Wanwan glanced at Lin Feng. "Since you have passed the test, you will no longer remain in the Eternal Ocean. The Pearl of Eternity contains the will of the Eternal God and will send you out of the Eternal Ocean." Lin Feng understood. In other words, once he obtained the Pearl of Eternity, he could leave immediately. The mission would be completed. Lin Feng fell in a deep thought. He couldn't see the conspiracy. The four-eyed sea dragons didn't have so many schemes. They were very simple. From their standpoint, they hoped that he would get the eternal bead and run as far away as possible. They didn't want him to occupy the eternal sea and force them to hide. Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan was guarding the eternal God's decree. As long as the cultivator met the requirements, he would offer up the Pearl of Eternity. The requirement was probably to kill the million-meter four-eyed sea dragon. "What's wrong, cultivator?" Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan was puzzled, seeing Lin Feng did not move. Wasn't he here to get the Pearl of Eternity? Why didn't he want it? Nothing. Lin Feng smiled and looked at Sea Dragon Emperor. Can I ask a few more questions? Go ahead. Sea Dragon Emperor frowned. Why is this cultivator so troublesome? But due to the eternal god's decree, Ao Wanwan couldn't do anything about it. How many pearls of eternity are there? Lin Feng asked. Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan answered. My four-eyed sea dragon tribe has been guarding it for generations, but the Garuda bird tribe should also have one. Lin Feng nodded. It was as he guessed. What will happen if I don't take your pearl of eternity? Lin Feng asked again. Black lines appeared on Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan's forehead, inwardly cursing this cultivator's brain. Not only did he not want the pearl of eternity, he even tried to snatch it. Coughing twice, Ao Wanwan said patiently, If you can't get the pearl of eternity, you will be killed by the eternal god after 1,000 years. Lin Feng asked curiously, how? Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan looked coldly at Lin Feng. This world was created by the eternal god. If he wants to kill you and me, he can turn us into ashes with a snap of his fingers. Even the eternal sea can easily collapse. Lin Feng nodded. With the Wheel Master's ability, it wasn't hard to kill him. Thus, the time limit of 1,000 years was real. I understand. Lin Feng exhaled softly, then smiled at Sea Dragon Emperor. Since Sea Dragon Emperor has already given the Pearl of Eternity to me, should we turn weapons of war into gifts of jade and silk? That's natural. Sea Dragon Emperor rolled his eyes. Was it important whether or not they reconciled? After taking the Pearl of Eternity, they would scram and never see each other again. Towards Lin Feng, Ao Wanwan did not have the slightest good impression. That's great. Lin Feng smiled at Sea Dragon Emperor. Then his gaze swept across the rest of the four-eyed Sea Dragon Kings. The grudges between us are written off. Well water will not interfere with river water in the future. I'll leave the Pearl of Eternity with you first. I'll come for it later. It's settled then. Finished speaking. Without waiting for Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan to regain his senses, Lin Feng had already disappeared without a trace, leaving behind the stunned Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan and the group of four-eyed Sea Dragon Kings looking at each other in dismay, not knowing what was going on. Left? He really left. Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan's brows furrowed deeply. Closing his dragon eyes, he sensed that Lin Feng's location was already some distance away from the palace. Indeed, Lin Feng was not joking. What did he mean? Why didn't he take the Pearl of Eternity? What the hell? Sea Dragon Emperor Ao Wanwan felt like he had been toyed with. He was extremely unhappy, but he could not flare up. What did he mean by leaving it here first? What did this cultivator take him for? Asterisk and asterisk. Ao Wanwan was furious after hearing the dragon curse. The rest of the four-eyed Sea Dragon Kings were also discussing spiritedly. They were extremely surprised. What was going on? If he did not want the Pearl of Eternity, what was he doing here? Lin Feng had many thoughts. 2 pearls of eternity, 8 eternal worlds, 100 million chakras. All of these combined together, it was not that simple. He was definitely not the only one who had obtained the Pearl of Eternity. The difficulty of the other eternal worlds was even lower. Although he did not know what the next test would be, it was always good to prepare for a rainy day. The time of the eternal worlds test was fixed. 1,000 eras was the eternal oceans world, the same as the elementary eternal soul world's 10 eras, just that the flow of time here was faster. He had only cultivated for 100 eras. It would be a waste to leave just like that. The cultivation environment here was extremely good. Above the sea, he could cultivate his mental strength. In the eternal ocean, he could cultivate his origin sea's battle strength. Moreover, he had already made peace with the four-eyed sea dragon clan. He could cultivate in peace in the eternal ocean. 1,000 eras. I must make good use of it. Lin Feng was very clear about what he should do. Chapter 2860. The Realm of 100 Million Wheels. While a bright light flashed, and a small black figure appeared. He had a black headband and a black cloak. He was filled with killing intent, as if he had just returned from massacre. Jinning. His aura was even more terrifying than when he had just entered the realm of 100 million wheels. Jianying's pitch-black eyes swept past his arms. He looked at his hands, and a powerful and perfect origin power exploded, flashing with light. Although he did not smile, one could see Jianying's excitement. He had become even stronger. Those who were familiar with Jianying knew that he was best at assassination. With his ghostly speed and movement techniques, coupled with his level 13 spatial attainments, there were very few who could survive his attacks. Jianying was a top-notch assassin. His attacks were impeccable, and the only thing he lacked was power. Although Jianying's attack power was not bad, his power was limited by nature, and he could not reach the highest level of Taichu's Origin Chaos universe. But now his shortest plank had been fixed. With the appearance of Jianying, the eternal power of the eternal world he had entered recovered, and rays of light seeped out. Through the light of the world, one could see a part of the eternal world, as if it had never been entered by a cultivator. Crack! As if sensing and confirming something, the pitch-black eyes under the mask changed slightly. Jianying's evil gaze fell on the 4 eternal worlds on the right. At this time, it was pitch black, and there was no light at all. It was the same for the 3 eternal worlds on the left. Shua! Jianying's ghostly figure disappeared, and he searched around the realm of 100 million wheels. However, there was nothing here. After searching for a long time, he did not find anything. Space rippled, and Jianying sat cross-legged in midair. A ray of black light covered his body, and he entered a cultivation state. He still needed to wait. Eternal Power World, medium difficulty, time limit, 100 eras. Jianying did not spend too long. He only spent 15 eras to complete the mission and obtain the Eternal Pearl. First, medium difficulty was indeed slightly easier. Second, Jianying's strength was the strongest among the 8 cultivators. Breaking through the encirclement was within reason. Jianying did not wait for too long. Although there was a lot of time in the eternal world, time passed very quickly in the outside world. After a while, a second ray of light flashed, and a man wearing a long robe and holding a scepter appeared. Behind him, a huge wheel of time slowly rotated. His indifferent expression was like that of a supreme emperor. Eternal God of Eternity had completed the mission. Within the dark void, God of Eternity and Musashi had joined forces to break through. They had arrived after Lin Feng and Heavenly King Zhao Quan. Musashi had chosen the eternal undying world, while God of Eternity had chosen the eternal soul world. The eternal soul was an elementary world with the lowest difficulty in the soul and origin sea. Not only had the eternal God completed it, but he had done so with ease. But at this moment, there was a rare look of worry on his calm face, as if there was a problem that could not be solved. Chua, Rapier Shadow, opened his eyes in the distance. When he saw the world of eternal soul shining with light, his expression was abnormally cold. He didn't even glance at Eternal God Eternal and closed his eyes. Eternal God of Eternity seemed to be waiting for something. Just like Jianying, Eternal God of Eternity quickly regained his composure. His gaze swept across the 4 eternal worlds on the left. He stepped back and quietly stood opposite Jianying. The huge wheel of time slowly rotated, like the ticking of a clock. After a long time, the huge wheel of time behind Eternal God of Eternity seemed to pause. Among the 8 eternal worlds, the eternal 100 million wheels, which was the deepest on the right, suddenly lit up. Just like eternal power and eternal soul, it once again shot out rays of light, allowing one to see the world. However, not a single cultivator appeared. Azure Hammer, Wang Yu. Eternal God of Eternity murmured. He roughly understood. He and Muzin were the 5th and 6th to reach the realm of 100 million wheels. Behind them were Great King Azure Hammer and Wang Yu. He and Muzin had chosen Eternal Soul and Eternal Destruction respectively. One was of elementary difficulty, while the other was of high difficulty. After the 6 eternal worlds were chosen, only the eternal universe and the eternal 100 million wheels were left. These are the 2 most difficult eternal worlds. Extreme difficulty. Time limit, 10,000 eras. Now that the eternal 100 million wheels had reopened, no cultivator had appeared. This meant that the cultivator who had entered had already died. This was not surprising because the eternal 100 million wheels was of extreme difficulty. Eternal God of Eternity had only entered the elementary difficulty, which was already not easy. One could imagine how difficult the extreme difficulty would be. Even if he had entered, he would most likely have died. However, Great King Azurhammer and Wang Yu had no other choice. Whoosh! A black shadow flitted past, as agile as a black panther. Black light flashed, and in almost an instant, it had entered the newly opened eternal 100 million wheels world. The bright light instantly dimmed. Oh! Eternal God of Eternity was slightly surprised. You actually didn't wait any longer. Haha! Indifferent laughter echoed. Eternal God of Eternity's eyes had a trace of helplessness. I have no other choice. Eternal Ocean. After 100 years of confrontation, peace had returned. Lin Feng and the four-eyed sea dragon had buried the hatchet and no longer fought. Although Lin Feng's strength was enough to sweep through the four-eyed sea dragon, if the four-eyed sea dragon deliberately hid, Lin Feng would not be able to find them. Thus, there was no need to fight anymore. Although the harvest of dragon souls was not full, Lin Feng was still satisfied. After breaking through to the godly venerable level, 3 super dragon souls and a top grade dragon soul were enough to raise the perfect origin sea to the limit again. That was enough. Instead of fighting to the death with the four-eyed sea dragon, it was better to peacefully use the unique location of the perfect origin sea to cultivate properly. Above the sea, Lin Feng had cultivated the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique, so he clearly knew how rare such an environment was. If it was outside, let alone 100 eras, 1,000 eras, or even 10,000 eras, one would not be able to comprehend the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique. The cultivation environment was very important. What was the most suitable environment for cultivation in the Eternal Ocean? Origin Sea Impact. Origin Soul Impact. No matter how many times it was used, the Origin Sea's energy could be recovered instantly. With the support of a full Origin Sea's energy, it would be twice the result with half the effort to improve the Origin Sea. In particular, Lin Feng had been fighting with the four-eyed sea dragon, so he had a new understanding of the Origin Sea impact. It only took him 12 eras to improve the 5th level of Starfall, an ordinary secret technique, and improve its power to the 6th level of Starfall. After that, his comprehension fell into shackles. After all, it was not easy to cross the barrier of 2 levels in one go. However, Lin Feng's comprehension was indeed terrifying. In addition to countless actual combat and extreme cultivation environments, it took him 277 eras to create countless secret techniques to break through the Origin Sea and find his own path. 7th level of Starfall, Pinnacle Secret Technique. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version update website. Chapter 2861. There were thousands of experts in the Hongmeng Sea. In particular, the 5 Origin Chaotic Universes had given birth to countless geniuses. In the Taichu Origin Chaotic Universe, there was little Hong Dao Yi, who was the #1 on the Huangzun list. He was a disciple of the Universe Master, and his space heavenly path had reached level 13. He had reached the 7th level of the Hongmeng Dual Pole Tower and could easily kill ordinary almighties. However, he had only created powerful techniques, which were equivalent to Lin Feng's 6th heaven of falling stars. Currently, in the 5 Origin Chaotic Universes, there was only one person at Huangzun's level who could create a pinnacle technique. In the endless history of the Hongmeng Sea, it was rare for someone at Huangzun's level to create a pinnacle technique. Lin Feng was already comparable to the top geniuses in the Hongmeng Sea. However, Lin Feng didn't know, and he wasn't satisfied. He still wanted to break through and create an ultimate technique that pointed directly at the mysteries of Hongmeng. An ultimate technique. A technique that surpassed pinnacle techniques. However, Lin Feng was only an imperial venerate. Even the universe in his body had not reached perfection. Naturally, he could not peek into the essence of Hongmeng. Ultimate secret techniques were rare even for almighties, let alone those below almighties. In the history of the Hongmeng Sea, Huang Zun's ability to create an ultimate technique could be counted on one's fingers. I've reached my limit. Lin Feng also felt that his strength had reached a bottleneck, including the perfection of his origin soul and the vastness of his origin sea. He hadn't reached the requirements to create an ultimate technique. To be honest, even if he could create an ultimate technique, he wouldn't be able to use it. However, even if he couldn't create an ultimate technique, he could still use other secret techniques. For example, he could use a simpler and more direct origin soul attack, or he could use an illusion attack that he had always wanted to master. Lin Feng now had several Hongmeng origin items, especially the two he had obtained in the Black Castle: Blue Heart Pearl Necklace and Blue Heart Pupil. One of them was a Hongmeng origin item that could control objects. One was an illusion-type Hongmeng source item. Furthermore, they were all fused with the perfect source heart force, which allowed them to unleash extremely powerful attacks. Refine, control, cultivate. It was difficult for an ordinary peak Yuan Venerate to unleash the power of Hongmeng source item, but Lin Feng could. Although he couldn't unleash 100% of its power, his upper limit was higher than a supreme chaotic treasure. Especially illusions, it was a level that Lin Feng had always wanted to touch. His willpower was extremely strong, and he was a mental cultivator. If he immersed himself in illusions, his attainments would definitely be extraordinary. There was a lot of time. Lin Feng enjoyed this quiet leisure time. He was constantly being hunted down and was unable to properly cultivate. Now that he was alone in the eternal ocean and had turned enemies into friends with the four-eyed sea dragon, he had a lot of time. In terms of mission completion speed, Lin Feng was much faster than Phantom. Although Phantom only took 15 eras, the eternal power world he was in had a time flow 10 times faster than Lin Feng's eternal sea. Mission completion was calculated based on the time taken. If Lin Feng had taken the eternal pearl that the Sea Dragon Emperor had given him, he would have returned to the 100 million wheel realm before Phantom. However, he would have lost 900 years of cultivation time. This was very hurtful for Lin Feng. It was more hurtful than losing 10 Hongmeng origin items. 900 eras wasn't much for many powerhouses like Huang Zun, Godly Venerates, and even Yuan Venerates. A lot of time would be consumed just by comprehending and entering seclusion. However, this was the longest and most peaceful period of cultivation that Lin Feng had ever experienced. The extent of improvement was also the greatest. This trip to the Eternal Ocean was no exaggeration to say that Lin Feng had been reborn. When he had entered the 100 million wheel realm, Lin Feng had been the weakest among the 8 cultivators. But now, he was already one of the strongest. The 8 eternal realms of the 100 million wheel realm lit up one after another. Ever since the eternal 100 million wheel realm lit up, Wang Yu had perished and Phantom had entered. The third cultivator to complete the mission was Daoist, who had entered the 10,000 eternal thoughts realm, followed by Heavenly King Zhaokua, who had chosen the eternal body realm. At this point, more than half of the first batch of cultivators had entered the eternal realms. Eternal Eternity God, Daoist, and Heavenly King Zhaokua hadn't chosen to enter the eternal realms. Instead, they had stayed in the 100 million wheel realm and kept waiting. Whoosh! A ray of light lit up, but no cultivator appeared. Heavenly King Zhaokua sighed. Green Hammer King still perished. What a pity. Daoist and shook his head. Another extreme difficulty realm, the Eternal Universe, lit up, but Green Hammer King didn't appear. He persisted for a long time before ultimately perishing. Green Hammer King wasn't weaker than Heavenly King, Zhaokua, and Daoistan. Unfortunately, the extreme difficulty was too terrifying. We'll meet again if fate wills it. While Daoist and was still hesitating, Eternal Eternity God had already entered the Eternal Universe. There was no expression on his face, as if everything had been predestined. Since nothing could be changed, he could only use strength to overcome the heavens. Eternal eternity God wouldn't admit defeat so easily, even if he had entered the extreme difficulty of the eternal universe. There was always a chance of survival. Why didn't you enter? Heavenly King Zhao Kuo looked at Daoist and, I can't do anything, but you can try. Daoist and narrowed his eyes. Eternal indestructibility or the eternal universe? If it were you, which would you choose? The cultivators who entered the 8 eternal realms already know that I don't need to take the risk of entering the eternal universe. I can just wait for Musin to come out of the eternal indestructibility. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo laughed. When you entered the eternal universe, eternal eternity God wanted to cry, but no tears came out. With him as my companion, I won't be lonely anymore. Daoist smiled. There's always a chance. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Heavenly King, you didn't have a chance to enter this time. Perhaps there's a silver lining. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo laughed. Then I'll follow your words. Hee. They looked at each other and laughed. Although the two were competitors, there was no hostility. Time slowly passed. Of the first batch that entered the Eternal Realms, only Musin and Linfeng had yet to come out. Both of them had entered the Eternal Realms of high difficulty. Unlike Linfeng, who was calm and leisurely cultivating, Musin was currently in deep trouble. No matter which of the 8 cultivators, it was very difficult to complete the Eternal Realms of high difficulty within the time limit. Linfeng's luck was pretty good. He had obtained the secret technique of the Black Crystal Mountain in the 2nd level of the Secret Realm. That was why he was able to complete the mission in such a short time. Otherwise, Linfeng might have been able to kill the 4-eyed sea dragons by himself, but the amount of time and effort he would have spent would not have been as short as 100 years. The strong would always be the strong. Born in the army, the elite of the elites of the 13 Corps, Musin was no ordinary person. He had forcibly found a way out of a hopeless situation. He had killed his way out of the encirclement and completed the eternal indestructibility mission. His strength had increased by another level, and he had obtained the Pearl of Eternity. The eternal indestructibility world flashed. Musin returned with a murderous aura. His blood-red eyes were filled with confidence. The current him was invincible. Chapter 2862. Musin survived. His laughter was arrogant and crazy. Musin's eyes were blood-red and his body was covered in wounds. It was obvious that he had gone through an inhuman trial. He was a super elite of the 13th Legion, but now he was in a sorry state. However, Musin's fighting spirit was unprecedentedly strong. His cold eyes glanced at Daoist and Heavenly King Zhao Biao. Then he locked his eyes on Heavenly King Zhao Biao. He glanced at the rest of the Eternal Worlds and asked, Where's Linfeng? Eternal Ocean. Daoist smiled and said, He hasn't come out yet. Then he waved his horsetail whisk. Daoist jumped over Musin and entered the newly opened Eternal World, leaving behind Heavenly King Zhao Kuo and Musin. Indeed, everything is predestined. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo sighed. Daoist, it's not that fortune comes in pairs, but that misfortune never comes alone. Clang. Whoosh! Fierce battle intent erupted. The blue light armor on Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's body flashed, revealing the aura of an emperor. 2 light swords and 2 spears appeared on his forearms. His battle intent soared. You should know who I am, Heavenly King Zhao Kuo said to Musin. Musin sneered and said, Others might be afraid of your Heavenly Swamp Alliance, but my army isn't. The giant sword behind him shot into the sky and landed on Musin's right hand. The metal ring clanged, and the stripes on Musin's black skin stood up. It looked terrifying. His entire body changed visibly. It was as if a straw hut had turned into a castle. Is this the Eternal World? Heavenly King Zhao Kuo said. You get what you pay for. There was helplessness in his voice, but there was no regret. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo looked very calm. He couldn't blame anyone for the choice he made. After entering the realm of 100 million wheels, he had more choices than Musashi, but he had chosen the lowest risk, the elementary difficulty. Although he had completed the mission, his strength had increased the least, and his luck had been very bad. He had entered the eternal world of 100 million wheels before Musashi. Everything was predestined. Come on. Heavenly King Zhao Kun knew that he was doomed. If you want to blame someone, blame Lin Feng. Muzin's killing intent surged as his strength erupted. His incomparably powerful physique had transformed, causing Muzin's strength to undergo a heaven-shaking transformation. When he entered the realm of 100 million wheels, his strength was on par with Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. But now he had completely surpassed it. Boom! The eternal ocean. Thump! Lin Feng was inexplicably shocked. He quickly turned on his communicator and saw a new message from Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. Lin Feng did not have many contacts on his communicator, only Heavenly King Zhao Kuo, Qi Yuzi, and my heir. Brother Lin, by the time you receive this message, I will have already left. Everything is fate. I, Zhao Cheng, have no regrets. However, I still have an unfulfilled wish. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo was dead. Lin Feng frowned, feeling very uncomfortable in his heart. This was Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's last thought message. He died under Muzin's sword. After coming out of the eternal world, Muzin was not the same as before. His strength was monstrous, and he was a full level stronger than Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. Heavenly King Zhao Kuo and Muzin belonged to different superpowers, and they had no grudges against each other. Lin Feng knew this very well. At that time, Muzin had even contacted Heavenly King Zhao Kuo in an attempt to resolve his feud with 13 Core. But today, Muzin had mercilessly killed Heavenly King Zhao Kuo. Why? Because Heavenly King Zhao Kuo and Lin Feng were allies, and Muzin wanted to kill Lin Feng. Muzin will not let you and I join forces to deal with him, so he must kill me first. Right now, he must be waiting in the realm of 100 million wheels. Once you appear, it will be a battle of life and death. Brother Lin, please be prepared. Don't repeat my mistakes. Take revenge for me. The last 4 words seemed to jump out from his chest. Lin Feng could completely feel the unwillingness in Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's heart. He did not want to die, but he was not as strong. Even if he did not die under Muzin's sword, Heavenly King Zhao Kuo knew that his future was bleak. There were some choices that couldn't be made if they were wrong. There was no turning back. Brother Zhao, please rest in peace. Lin Feng's expression was solemn. Although he and Heavenly King Zhao Kuo were only allies and friends, they were allies after all. I did not kill Borin, but Borin died because of me. If Heavenly King Zhao Kuo had not allied with him, Muzin would not have killed him. I will fulfill your unfulfilled wish for you. Lin Feng was not afraid of taking responsibility, and he was not afraid of Muzin, who was guarding the realm of 100 million wheels. Muzin came out of the eternal world of high difficulty, and so did he. The eternal ocean was also of high difficulty. Moreover, he had cultivated for a longer time. Lin Feng was confident that his current strength was not below Muzin's. After I kill Muzin, take back your storage ring and leave the secret realm. I will go to the Taichu Origin chaotic universe and fulfill your unfulfilled wish for you. After looking at the communication device for a long time, Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's message dissipated like smoke, which meant that Heavenly King Zhao Kuo had been annihilated. There are still 177 eras left. Lin Feng originally wanted to continue creating ultimate techniques in the eternal ocean and improve his origin spirit to create a pinnacle ultimate technique. However, there was no time now. He had to strengthen his combat strength to the limit. The perfect origin spirit's origin C had been shackled for a long time, and it was extremely difficult to break through again. However, there was still one place where he could break through again. The Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique. 177 eras. I will definitely comprehend the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique to great success. Lin Feng's belief was unprecedentedly firm. Secret techniques were the most difficult to comprehend. After reaching small success, it was like building the foundation of a tall building. All that was left was to build it up layer by layer. Although it was difficult, it would only take a long time. From small success to great success, then to complete, it was the same no matter where one cultivated. Therefore, Lin Feng did not continue to cultivate the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique. In addition, the Garuda bird clan often appeared, and it was easy to interrupt his cultivation. Lin Feng had been cultivating in the eternal ocean these days, and the path of a one-thought supremacy was his strength. However, now, Musen was eyeing him covetously, sharpening his blade. Lin Feng would not sit still and wait for death. Just as Heavenly King Zhao Kui said, strength was the absolute truth. The rules of the game had always been decided by the winner. Whoosh! Lin Feng rushed out of the eternal ocean and returned to the sky. I'm here again, feeling the aura and energy that were completely different from the eternal ocean. This was the most suitable place for mental cultivators. In this place, he had once spent 100 eras to learn the mental cultivation secret technique that he was not good at, from understanding it to mastering it. Bit by bit, he had comprehended the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique that the Wheel Master had painstakingly created, transforming his strength. Now, he had returned once again, 177 eras. Lin Feng had 100% confidence that he would be able to comprehend the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique to the next level and reach great success. At that time, his strength would increase by more than 50%. Chapter 2863. Faith was very important. With a strong enough faith and goal, one would be able to achieve half the results with twice the effort. 177 eras. Lin Feng only spent 55 eras, which was half the time he had estimated, to increase his understanding of the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique to the next level, reaching the Great Mastery Realm. His strength suddenly soared by 50%. However, Lin Feng did not give up. Instead, he chose to continue cultivating. At the same time, the number of Garuda birds he killed gradually increased. Garuda hearts fell into his pocket one after another. The effects were comparable to the Hongmeng fruit. Epoch after epoch passed. To Lin Feng, each era passed by very quickly. His understanding of the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique progressed at a tremendous pace. The closer he got to the time limit, the more shocking Lin Feng's comprehension speed became. He completely entered a state of cultivation, killing anyone who stood in his way. After that, the Garuda birds did not even dare to approach Lin Feng. They were not stupid. Just like the four-eyed sea dragons, they had chased after Lin Feng because the four-eyed sea dragons felt that Lin Feng was weak and could easily kill him. The Garuda birds were the same. They had the ability to kill Lin Feng, which was why they attacked Lin Feng again and again. But now, the Garuda birds were already afraid. After clashing time and time again, they felt that this cultivator's strength was far beyond their imagination. If they angered this cultivator, it was very likely that he would kill his way into the sky and attack their palace. 1,000 eras was almost up. There was no need to provoke this malefic star. Once the cultivator left, they would still be the overlords of the eternal ocean. They would still be able to move unhindered. A mere four-eyed sea dragon could only hide in the eternal ocean, unable to contend against them. The master of 100 million wheels is truly wise. Lin Feng was filled with emotion. The deeper he comprehended, the more impressed he was. The creation of such a secret technique completely exceeded his current level. It was definitely an ultimate secret technique. The hundreds of eras he spent to comprehend it were not in vain. If the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique is like this, then the Blue Crystal Lake's secret technique shouldn't be too far off either. Lin Feng had 2 sets of the Wheel Master's secret technique in his possession. After 172 eras of cultivation, he had completely grasped the Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique and cultivated it to perfection. With less than 5 years left, Lin Feng wanted to do one thing. Straight to the blue sky. When I was cultivating, he kept sneaking up on me. Garuda bird, it's time for us to settle old scores. Lin Feng had always been a person who would repay a debt of gratitude. If he didn't have the time or the strength, then so be it. But now that he had both, he naturally wouldn't let the Garuda go. It was true that they were stronger than the four-eyed sea dragons, And it was true that they couldn't replenish the Origin Sea's energy from the sky. But so what? Now, he had the strength, the time, and a reliable ally. Four-eyed Sea Dragon Clan. Eternal Sea, Coral Palace. Dragon Emperor. Do you think he can be trusted? That's right, Sea Dragon Emperor. I don't think he's reliable. That's right, he has no reason to help us. Furthermore, is he that strong? The four-eyed Sea Dragon Kings all talked at once, discussing spiritedly. AO11, who was wearing a crown, lightly stroked his dragon beard. You all need to learn to trust each other. Although he's not from our clan, we've known each other for hundreds of eras. Has he ever lied to us? He hasn't. For hundreds of eras, we've lived in harmony. That's true. AO11 nodded with satisfaction. That's right. Cultivators can be trusted. Since he said that he would help us kill the Garuda bird clan, he won't go back on his words. We're only giving him some resources. But those are dragon souls. That's right, they're all dragon souls left behind by our clansmen. Sigh, we gave them to him just like that. The Sea Dragon Kings felt that it was a pity. The importance of dragon souls was self-evident. If the four-eyed sea dragons wanted to fight against the Garuda bird clan in the blue sky, they needed to accumulate sea dragon souls. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to recover their energy during battle. But now, they had given half of them to a cultivator. AO11 lightly stroked his long beard, his gaze deep. Everyone, let's just wait for his good news. Sweeping his gaze across the four-eyed Sea Dragon Kings, AO11 turned around and looked at the eternal god statue, his heart filled with helplessness. Those were sea dragon souls that had been accumulated for countless eras. Did he want to give them to him? If he didn't, then the cultivator would threaten him and snatch them away. His strength was much stronger than 800 years ago. AO11 wanted to refuse at that time, but before he could open his mouth, he was shocked by the strength that Lin Feng had displayed. What a joke. If he didn't agree, then that shameless cultivator would have made his move in the next second. AO11 was very sure that with that cultivator's strength, even if all the four-eyed sea dragons gathered together, they still wouldn't be his match. Raising a tiger will only invite calamity. AO11's heart was filled with 10,000 seahorses galloping. As the Sea Dragon Emperor, he could only look at the big picture and bear the pain of giving up his treasures. He didn't care if that cultivator would keep his promise, because he had no other choice. Almighty Lord, please protect your people. AO11 bowed his head and prayed. Straight to the blue sky. Although Lin Feng had threatened AO11, 90% of his words were true. He really wanted to cause a ruckus. Threatening AO11 was just a feint. He didn't expect the four-eyed sea dragons to have so many sea dragon souls hidden away. These top-grade sea dragon souls were more than what he could obtain from killing them. Now, he could obtain them without any effort. The sea dragon souls could not only open up the perfect Origin Sea, but they could also restore the energy of the Origin Sea. Moreover, unlike the slow recovery of the great Origin Fruit, the sea dragon souls could be instantly replenished. The effect was exactly the same as the Eternal Sea. The sea dragon souls were originally born from the Eternal Sea. Since the four-eyed sea dragons have accumulated sea dragon souls, then the Garuda bird clan must have also accumulated Garuda hearts. Since I've come, there's no reason for me to return empty-handed. Lin Feng flew into the sky. He had obtained information about the Garuda bird clan from the Sea Dragon Emperor AO11. They were few in number, not even 1/10,000th of the four-eyed sea dragons. However, their individual combat strength was very strong, especially in the sky. The Garuda bird clan loved to eat the four-eyed sea dragons. Moreover, their abilities countered each other. Therefore, the four-eyed sea dragons were very afraid of the Garuda bird clan. However, Lin Feng wasn't afraid. Boom! The Phantom Spider Claw's direct attack, supported by the Great Perfection Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique, was simply terrifying. Lin Feng's controlling attacks couldn't defeat the million-meter four-eyed Sea Dragon King before, but now that the Great Perfection Black Crystal Mountain's secret technique had reached great perfection, he could definitely kill it. Therefore, AO11 was willing to part with his treasures and compromise. As the Sea Dragon Emperor, AO11 knew when to yield and when to stand tall. He was definitely a man. However, the Garuda Bird Emperor was not to be outdone. In the clear sky, not a single Garuda bird could be seen. In the blue sky, the Garuda Star's palace gate opened. The Garuda Bird Emperor led a group of Garuda bird kings to warmly welcome Lin Feng. He was also a respectable man. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version update website. Chapter 2864. Lin Feng returned from a rewarding journey. Even he himself did not think that things would go so smoothly. One would not hit a smiling bird. The Garuda bird race welcomed them warmly, and Lin Feng naturally did not take the past to heart. He completely forgot about the previous unpleasantness. Most importantly, the Garuda bird clan was even more courteous than the four-eyed sea dragon clan. They offered up a pile of Garuda hearts, including the Pearl of Eternity in the hands of the God of Eternity. It had to be said that the Garuda bird clan did have some skills. No wonder they were able to suppress the four-eyed sea dragon clan. It didn't matter to Lin Feng which Pearl of Eternity they took, because he could only take one. The Garuda Bird Emperor said the same thing as the four-eyed Sea Dragon Emperor. The moment he took the Pearl of Eternity, he would immediately leave the Eternal Ocean. So, even if you take the Pearl of Eternity, you will also immediately leave the Eternal Ocean? Lin Feng asked. Yes, esteemed cultivator. The Garuda Bird Emperor, Shirwanli, had a smile on his face. Suddenly, the dark golden wings on his back trembled slightly. Shirwanli cautiously took 2 steps back. Lord Cultivator, why are you asking this? Nothing, I'm just asking. Lin Feng looked at the Garuda Bird Emperor Shirwanli. He was much younger than the four-eyed Sea Dragon Emperor AO11. Considering the lifespan of the Garuda Bird clan, he was at his peak. Right between you and AO11, who is stronger? Lin Feng asked again. The Garuda Bird Emperor Shirwanli had a disdainful look on his face, just that old dragon head. When we roared, he was so scared that he wet himself. If not for the God of Eternity's order not to kill the four-eyed Sea Dragon clan, we would have exterminated them long ago. Oh, Lin Feng was slightly surprised. He originally thought that the Garuda Bird clan and the four-eyed Sea Dragon clan were evenly matched, but it didn't seem to be the case. Although Shirwanli's words were sometimes insincere, he definitely wouldn't use the God of Eternity to lie, because the Wheel Master was a transcendent existence that created them in this world. The Garuda Bird clan and four-eyed Sea Dragon clan were both extremely respectful towards the God of Eternity. Lin Feng could completely see this point. Are you interested in coming with me? Lin Feng suddenly asked. What? The Garuda Bird Emperor flapped its dark golden wings and stared at Lin Feng with wide eyes. Where are you going? To take a look at the outside world. The Garuda Bird Emperor was stunned. Grow of that. Later, he defeated the current Garuda Bird clan and became the new Garuda Bird clan's emperor. He changed his name to Shirwanli and ruled over the Eternal Ocean. Just as Shirwanli had said, if it wasn't for the God of Eternity's decree that the four-eyed sea dragons were not to be killed, he would have entered the Eternal Ocean long ago. With his strength, he could easily wipe out the four-eyed sea dragons. A mere million-meter-long four-eyed sea dragon wasn't his match at all. But was this really the life he wanted? The primordial sea has limitless opportunities and countless unimaginable powerhouses. Even the God of Eternity, who created you, fell in the Hongmeng Sea. Don't you want to see it for yourself? Bang! Lin Feng's words were like a bomb exploding in Shirwanli's head. The God of Eternity, who created them, had died. Impossible. The God of Eternity was like a deity in Shirwanli's heart. He was like a father god to Shirwanli. He was more important than his own life. The God of Eternity was the Garuda Bird clan's faith. But now this faith had collapsed. How did the God of Eternity fall? Shirwanli stared at Lin Feng, his eyes red and his body trembling slightly. His heartbreak was visible to the naked eye. I don't know. Lin Feng shook his head. But you can find out for yourself. If you're willing to come with me, we will be companions. Besides, Don't you desire to break through the shackles and reach Sherwan, Li's height? You will never be able to do it if you stay in the eternal ocean. Lin Feng was very clear about this point. After all, this world had been created by the 100 million wheel master, and the laws of this world had been set by the 100 million wheel master. The Garuda bird clan's height of 10,000 miles was actually equivalent to a peak Yuan venerate cultivator. If they broke through again, they would become an almighty. It was impossible to break through and become an almighty in the world of the eternal overlords. However, it was possible in the Hongmeng Sea. In the Hongmeng Sea, Sherwan Li could even surpass the limit and surpass Sherwan Li by millions of miles. The Hongmeng Sea had unlimited possibilities. Sherwan Li hesitated. The polite smile on his face disappeared and was replaced by a grave expression. He was pondering this seriously, as Lin Feng's words had a great impact on him. Lin Feng was waiting. The reason he had made this request was because Sherwan Li was really strong. Lin Feng had a feeling that he still wouldn't be able to defeat him given his current strength. Sherwan Li was much stronger than the four-eyed sea dragon emperor Ao Wanwan. He was a true super powerhouse of the Garuda bird clan. His combat strength had already surpassed ordinary almighties. Not only was 100,000 miles powerful, but it was also intelligent. Furthermore, it was classified as a beast and could form a soul contract with it. Lin Feng was trying to gain something without risking anything. If he could obtain a mount with the strength of a powerful existence, then this trip would not have been in vain. There were two eternal pearls, one for him and the other for Sherwan Li. Lin Feng knew that one of the two eternal pearls was likely to be left for another cultivator, but what did this have to do with him? Maximizing his own strength was the most important thing. He will agree. Lin Feng had only been 50% confident before, but now he was 80% confident. Sherwan Li might seem frivolous and cunning, but he was actually gifted and had a strong personality. Furthermore, he had a deep respect and faith for the eternal God. It was as if he treated the owner of 100 million wheels as his father. Based on this point alone, Lin Feng was confident that Sherwan Li would agree in the end. This was because he had the heart of an almighty. He wanted to become stronger. Otherwise, he wouldn't have named himself Sherwan Li. He was very clear that in the eternal ocean, he would never reach the true limit of cultivation. Sherwan Li, living a muddle-headed life, never reaching his dreams and pursuits, this wasn't the true path of an almighty. It was definitely not what Sherwan Li wanted to pursue. What Lin Feng wanted was also not an ordinary Garuda bird emperor. Only by having the same heart could they walk the same path. All right, Sherwan Li's voice was a little hoarse. He raised his dark golden wings, and his eyes were filled with determination. I will go with you, but if you lie to me, even if I die, I will drag you down with me. You have made the right decision. Ha! Their claws clasped together. Lin Feng and Sherwan Li looked at each other and smiled. Chapter 2865. The Realm of 100 Million Wheels. Of the 8 eternal worlds, 4 were dim and 4 were bright. Among the first 8 cultivators to enter, Great King Greenhammer and Wang Yu had died in the eternal world, and Heavenly King Zhao Qua had been killed by Musin. In fact, this was the case every time the secret world opened. In the end, none of the cultivators could come out of the realm of 100 million wheels alive the first time, and only one could come out the second time. The owner of 100 million wheels, a Khanate Almighty. The test left behind would not be ordinary. With Heavenly King Zhao Qua's strength, even if he did not die in Musin's hands, he would not be able to pass the second test of the realm of 100 million wheels. This was because his choice in the first round was completely wrong. Musin had made the right choice. He had used his forte, the heavenly Tao, to pass through the eternal world and obtain the opportunity to break through. Now, Musin could choose the medium difficulty 10,000 thoughts eternal and walk the same path as Daoistan. His chances of passing the second test were very high, but he was waiting for one person, Lin Feng, who had entered the eternal ocean in the first round. Previously, it was the Yuan general's order to capture Lin Feng, but now it was Muzin's own will. The Yuan general wanted him alive, but Muzin already had a strong desire to kill Lin Feng. This was because the elites of the 13th Division that he had led had almost all been slaughtered by Lin Feng. As the captain, Muzin could not pretend that he had not seen it. He had to take revenge for the other team members. Therefore, he had to kill Heavenly King Zhao Kuo first to prevent him from joining forces with Lin Feng later. It would be very disadvantageous for him to fight 1 against 2. If he was going to do it, he had to be ruthless. As a super elite in the army, Muzin's abilities were quite outstanding in all aspects. It's almost time. The giant sword behind him glowed. The time limit of 1,000 eras in the Eternal Ocean was about to end. Although Muzin was not sure if Lin Feng could come out alive, he knew how terrifying the higher difficulty was. But as long as Lin Feng appeared, he would kill him without mercy. All the grudges have been settled. Muzin no longer cared about the Yuan general's orders. With his current ability, he would definitely be put in an important position when he returned to the 13 Corps. Even if he was punished by the Yuan general, it wouldn't affect him much. He had to avenge his team members. Hua! A beam of light lit up in front of Muzin. It was the world of the Eternal Ocean. He made it out alive. Muzin didn't know what to feel in his heart. On one hand, he hoped that Lin Feng would come out alive and kill Lin Feng with his own hands. On the other hand, he hoped that Lin Feng would die in the Eternal Ocean. When the Yuan general questioned him, he would be able to stay out of it. There were some things that he still needed to do personally. If you come out, you won't be able to escape death either. Muzin's physique transformed in a split second. During the trip to the eternal, undying world, his perfect origin body had already surpassed the limits and reached the universe body of a powerful existence. His abilities in all aspects had been refined. The current him, other than his internal universe, was no different from an almighty in all other aspects. Moreover, his combat power was even stronger. The short horn on his brow bone was slightly prominent. The metal ring on Muzin's forehead moved. The giant sword flashed, and sword intent burst forth. He was waiting for the protective light on Lin Feng's body to disappear so that he could kill Lin Feng in an instant. But it seemed that Lin Feng wasn't the only one who appeared. 2 auras. A dark golden light flashed in front of him. It was an incomparably huge strange bird that was 10,000 miles long. Its dark golden wings covered the sky, and Lin Feng's figure couldn't be seen at all. Screech! The strange bird opened its sharp beak and let out an extremely ear-piercing sound. Screech! Muzin's expression changed. The impact of the will that penetrated deep into Musashi's soul caused him to feel dizzy. His eyes turned blood red, and he shouted out loud. His great sword erupted with a monstrous might as it slashed towards the dark, golden-winged bird. But clang! The claw of the strange bird collided with the giant sword. Instantly, a dark golden light flashed. Muzin felt a surging force, and his hand hurt as he was sent flying. What kind of monster was this? Musashi's heart was shocked. His perfect origin body had transformed, and his attack power had reached a new level. He could easily kill Heavenly King Zhao Xian, but now he was sent flying by a strange bird's claw. Mental cultivation. Muzin instantly understood the power of the strange bird. The willpower attack from before and the power that was attacking him now were all the abilities of mental cultivators. But where did this mental cultivator come from? Bang! Muzin didn't have time to think. The strange bird let out a high-pitched cry and attacked again. The willpower attack was mixed with sharp claws, and its power was astonishing. The Garuda Bird Emperor, Shirwan Li, as the strongest person in the high-difficulty Eternal Ocean, Shirwan Li's strength was enough to be placed in the extreme difficulty world. Even Lin Feng, whose strength had greatly improved, knew that he couldn't defeat Shirwan Li, let alone Muzin. In terms of strength improvement, Muzin was far inferior to Lin Feng. Close combat was the Garuda bird's forte. Combined with the willpower attack and its terrifying physique, Shirwan Li completely suppressed Muzin. In terms of strength and speed, Shirwan Li surpassed Muzin. In terms of physical defense, Shirwan Li wasn't inferior to Muzin, who had a cosmic body. It also had willpower attack and rank 13 spatial control. How could Musin fight it? Pooh! Very quickly, Musin was injured. Like a ferocious injured beast, Musin used his giant sword to block Sherwan Li's attack while shouting, "Come out, Lin Feng. If you're a man, fight me one-on-one." Bastard! Musin already knew where Lin Feng was. He was on the back of the strange bird. He didn't know where Lin Feng had gotten such a terrifying monster. Its strength completely suppressed him. If this continued, he would soon be killed by this strange, dark, golden-winged bird. He wouldn't even be able to escape. Musin's only hope now was that Lin Feng would appear and fight him one-on-one. That way, he still had a chance. Whoosh! A figure descended from the sky. The dark, golden-winged bird suddenly stopped its attack. Musashi was stunned for a moment. He didn't have any hope in provoking it, but he didn't expect Lin Feng to really appear in front of him. Boom! Musin's hatred was ignited instantly. An explosive force appeared like the wrath of heaven. He wanted to kill this human in front of him. But in an instant, pong, Musin's body suddenly collapsed. His eyes were filled with fear and disbelief. The giant sword fell with his body. His perfect universe body turned into dust and collapsed on the 100 million wheel realm. His aura was completely gone. Instant kill. On the other side, Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and his expression was calm. On the other hand, the Garuda Bird Emperor 100,000 Li sized up his master with interest. His body shrank, and he turned into a human. Rest in peace, Heavenly King. I've already avenged you. Lin Feng put away Musin's storage rings. Among them was Heavenly King Zhao Kuo's storage ring. There were tokens and all kinds of treasures inside. Musin was indeed very strong. But now, Lin Feng's Sorcery attack was even more heaven-defying. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version update website. M. Chapter 2866. So, the Eternal God created 8 worlds. Sherwan Li was curiously looking at the 8 eternal worlds, including the eternal ocean that he had just come out of. However, the eternal ocean was not open because the 2 eternal pearls had been taken away. Everything here was new to Sherwan Li. He had been growing up in the eternal ocean since he was born and had never been to the outside world, including the realm of 100 million wheels. This is part of the secret realm. The secret realm is the core of the master of 100 million wheels inner universe. Lin Feng looked at Sherwan Li. The master of 100 million wheels is the eternal God you speak of. Sherwan Li nodded in understanding. After leaving, he realized how big the world was. What he saw made Sherwan Li even more certain that he had made the right decision to leave. Eternal body, eternal power. Lin Feng looked at the 4 eternal universes on the left. Only the elementary and intermediate difficulty eternal worlds were left. The advanced difficulty eternal undying world and the extreme difficulty eternal universe world were all unopened. I should be the last to come out. So, it's still a dark eternal world. It's the eternal world that the other cultivators chose to enter in the second round. Lin Feng looked to the right. The eternal world of the soul and the origin sea was very similar to the 4 eternal worlds on the left. The elementary and intermediate eternal worlds were open, but the advanced and extreme difficulty eternal worlds were closed. Among them, the advanced difficulty eternal ocean was not entered by other cultivators. Instead, he had taken away all the 2 eternal pearls. Judging from the choices in the first round, in the second round, only Zhu Ying and Heavenly King could enter the eternal 100 million wheels, but Heavenly King had fallen, so Zhu Ying entered. Only Taoist and an eternal God entered the eternal undying and eternal universe worlds. Green Hammer King and Wang Yu have fallen. Lin Feng instantly deduced. When he had just come out of the eternal ocean world, he had learned the rules of the second round of the eternal worlds. He had to choose the other eternal world above the diagonal difficulty. Simply put, he could only choose the eternal world of the soul on the right if he chose the eternal world of the physical body in the first round. Lin Feng had chosen the eternal ocean in the first round, so in the second round, he could only choose the 4 eternal mortal worlds on the left. If he chose the basic difficulty for the first round, he would have to choose the extreme difficulty for the second round. If he chose medium difficulty for the first round, he would have to choose high difficulty for the second round, and so on. Lin Feng chose high difficulty for the first round, so he had 3 choices for the second round. Medium difficulty, eternal power world. High difficulty, eternal indestructible world. The extreme difficulty, eternal universe world. Among them, the eternal undying world and the eternal universe world had already been taken, leaving Lin Feng. Actually, only the eternal force world of medium difficulty was left. No wonder the Heavenly King said that he made the wrong choice. Lin Feng also felt that it was a pity for Heavenly King Zhaoque. Heavenly King Zhaoque had chosen the basic difficulty of the eternal body world for the first round. There is only one choice for the second round, which was the extreme difficulty of the eternal 100 million wheels world. It's a pity that Ming Ying beat us to it. Lin Feng was also very impressed by Ming Ying's courage. In the first round, Ming Ying was the first to choose. He chose the medium difficulty eternal power world. In the second round, he could have chosen the high difficulty eternal ocean world, which was the eternal world that he had entered. However, Ming Ying did not hesitate to choose the highest difficulty eternal 100 million wheels. Now, it seemed that his choice was correct, because he had already taken all the eternal pearls from the eternal ocean. Unfortunately, Heavenly King Zhaoque had nowhere to run and had died under Muzin's sword. However, Lin Feng also knew that with Heavenly King Zhaoque's strength, even if he entered the high difficulty eternal world, he would most likely die, let alone the extreme difficulty eternal world. One wrong move, and the whole game would fall apart. Another one who made a mistake was Eternal God Eternal. Lin Feng looked at the eternal universe world. The one who had entered now was definitely Eternal God Eternal. From the clues, he could infer the choices of all the experts in the first and second round. Eternal Power. Lin Feng looked at the medium difficulty eternal power world. In the first round, it was Ming Ying who had chosen this eternal world. He had successfully obtained the eternal pearl. His gaze fell on the Garuda bird emperor Li, who was looking around. Lin Feng was 100% confident that he could obtain the eternal pearl. Just Li alone was enough. If he returned to the eternal ocean now, Li could easily obtain the eternal pearl. Even the high difficulty eternal world was not a problem, not to mention the medium difficulty eternal world. Every eternal world was created by the master of 100 million wheels. It was definitely formed by perfect origin heart force. Li would definitely be able to display his strength. This was one of the reasons why Lin Feng chose Li. The four-eyed sea dragon race relied too much on the environment to display their battle strength. However, the Garuda bird race could display extremely powerful battle strength in any place. They had battle strength that surpassed ordinary almighties. Medium difficulty, 100 eras. Lin Feng hesitated. It was not that the difficulty of the eternal world was too high. It was that the difficulty was too low and the time limit was too short. After entering the eternal ocean, Lin Feng was very clear that the more dangerous and difficult it was, the more rewards he would gain in the end. Even if he did not obtain anything, he would have ample time to cultivate, to enter or not to enter. The rules of the world did not state that I must enter now. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. He did not want to be forced into the eternal world. If he had opened the high difficulty eternal world, he would have entered it. However, the medium difficulty 100 years time limit was too short. His body and origin energy were very weak. He was lagging behind his soul by a lot. He needed a lot of time to make up for it. Eternal world, high difficulty, 1,000 years, is most suitable for me. After going through the trials of the eternal ocean, Lin Feng knew what the high difficulty level was. It was something he could handle and was within his grasp. After completing the high difficulty mission, he would have a lot of time to cultivate and make up for his weaknesses. Entering the eternal world was Lin Feng's first choice. As for entering the extreme difficulty eternal world, Lin Feng had some misgivings. Firstly, it was impossible to predict how dangerous the extreme difficulty would be. Secondly, his battle strength relied on his mental cultivation and Origin C. If he entered the Eternal World and was unable to use Origin C, what would happen? At that time, there would be no way out. Oh. Lin Feng let out a light breath and waited patiently. Sherwanli was like a curious baby. He flew around, transforming into his Garuda bird form and then into his human form. He circled around Lin Feng and did not feel lonely. Soon, a ray of light lit up at the 100 million wheel realm.